Nintendo injury. Lionel Simmons, a rookie for Sacramento in the early 90s, managed to do something that still makes people shake their heads. He injured his wrist playing Nintendo. During the 1990-91 season, Simmons picked up tendinitis in his right wrist and forearm. The reason? Way too much time on his Game Boy. This wasn't just some mild ache either. It was real tendinitis from repetitive button mashing, enough that it actually caused him to miss 2 games. This wasn't from practice, a fall, or even a game. It was from gaming. The date it all hit the fan? February 20th, 1991. The same season Simmons had just been named Player of the Week. So yeah, things were going great, until his thumb declared war. The handheld console's non-stop motion wore down his tendons and inflamed everything in his wrist and forearm, what doctors now call a repetitive strain injury, or more specifically, Nintendo thumb. Even though it only kept him out for 2 games, this bizarre little injury came right at a time when people expected big things from him. Simmons was fresh off winning the Naismith College Player of the Year award in 1989, so sitting out because of a video game didn't exactly help his rep. Still, the injury didn't cause any long-term issues, and he came back just fine. Sports Illustrated broke the story back in March 1991, and since then, Simmons' Game Boy problem has earned a permanent spot on lists of the weirdest injuries in professional sports history. Plane on fire. On March 30th, 2021, the Utah Jazz's charter flight took off from Salt Lake City, bound for Memphis. Moments after takeoff, things went sideways, literally. The plane struck a flock of birds, and the left engine caught on fire. Not overheated, not smoking. Actually on fire. The nose of the aircraft also took a direct hit, leaving visible damage. The players were suddenly on a flight that felt more like a disaster film than a trip to a basketball game. The pilot wasted no time. He turned that Boeing 757 around and brought it back down for an emergency landing in less than 20 minutes. There were no injuries, but the cabin was filled with panic. Mike Conley said it felt like the whole plane was breaking apart. Jordan Clarkson admitted he thought that was the end. Players were texting family members mid-flight, just in case they didn't make it. After landing, fire crews were already on the runway, ready to respond. The damage was bad enough to ground the plane for good. The team had to wait for a replacement aircraft, another Boeing 757, that finally left around 7:45 that evening and landed in Memphis just after 11. Not everyone made the second flight. Donovan Mitchell, who already had a fear of flying, decided not to get back on the plane. He missed the game for personal reasons. Coach Quinn Snyder later said every player dealt with the experience differently, and it hit them all in a big way. Bird strikes are more common than people think, but one that sets an engine on fire with a plane full of players, that's not your average Tuesday flight. K-pop voting surge. In January 2022, Andrew Wiggins became a Western Conference All-Star starter, and part of that rise came from a wave of fan votes powered by a K-pop megastar. The All-Star voting system gives fans 50% control, while players and media split the rest. And while Wiggins wasn't dominating the media or player ballots, his fan votes exploded past expectations, landing him around 3.5 million. That huge spike didn't come out of nowhere. On January 7th, during a double vote day where every ballot counted twice, K-pop star Bam Bam tweeted out his support. As the Warriors' global ambassador, Bam Bam dropped a post hyping Wiggins as one of the best two-way players in the league. That tweet racked up nearly 40,000 retweets, all of which counted as votes. The timing couldn't have been better. The post trended #1 in Thailand and pulled in global support fast. While Wiggins was having a solid season, the voting breakdown showed the gap. Media only gave him 4 votes. Players put him behind Green and Gobert, but fans, they pushed him right past both. Injuries to other front court players like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George also cleared some space. And with the NBA's positional voting rules, Wiggins had an even clearer path. Analysts were split. Some said it exposed flaws in the system. Others pointed out that Wiggins still earned his place with strong performances. Reddit users argued the K-pop influence was overblown, but the numbers don't lie. That tweet on that day made a massive difference. Whether fans loved it or hated it, Wiggins became an all-star starter, and the internet played a starring role. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, no substitution half. In Game 4 of the 2025 playoffs, Lakers coach J.J. Redick made a move that's never been done in recorded NBA postseason history. He ran the exact same 5 guys for the entire second half. No subs. Not a single player off the bench touched the floor after halftime. The group was LeBron, Luka, Reeves, Rui, and Dorian Finney-Smith. Redick didn't walk in with that plan. He decided it during halftime. After a frustrating stretch of games where the bench wasn't doing much to help, he rolled with his starters. And for a while, it looked like a genius move. The Lakers had their best quarter of the series in the third, and even led by 7 with under 5 minutes to go, but momentum fizzled. They ended up losing by 3, falling behind 3-1 in the series. Players pushed back on the idea that fatigue played a role. LeBron, Luka, and the rest said it came down to poor execution, not tired legs. Meanwhile, guys like Jackson Hayes, Gabe Vincent, Jard Vanderbilt, and Jordan Goodwin sat out the half entirely. Redick spoke with them afterward, and they reportedly stayed on board with the team's goals. Then came the media circus. Redick's lineup decision caught major heat. Some analysts, including ESPN's Brian Windhorst, called it childish and immature, especially after Redick walked out of a press conference when asked about it. That only cranked the spotlight higher. It's the first time in the substitution-tracked era a coach has gone an entire half in the playoffs without touching the bench. And now, whether it was gutsy or reckless, it's burned into playoff history like a branding iron. Wilt's vertical leap. Wilt Chamberlain once claimed he had a 46 to 48-inch vertical. Easy, according to him. Some stories even float a 50-inch number, which would put him in the realm of pure sci-fi. On his Wikipedia page, it says he could dunk free throws without a running start. Just picture that. A 7-footer, standing at the line, going straight up and dunking. That's what the myth says. Back in his Kansas days, Wilt actually dunked on an experimental 12-foot rim. His standing reach was around 9 feet 6 inches, and he was reportedly touching 13 feet 3 inches at his peak, which does line up with a 45-inch vertical. Teammates like Jerry West and Satch Sanders swore he could touch the top of the backboard. That would also put him right near that 48-inch range, but not everyone's buying it. A sports performance coach who studied old footage said his vertical was probably closer to 38 to 41 inches. Still elite, but not spaceman numbers. Reddit's been all over this too, with fans pointing out that footage of Wilt in action doesn't match the highest claims. A lot of people think his insane athletic feats got more mythical as time went on. So, what's real? The guy was clearly an athletic marvel, dunking 12-foot hoops and making legends talk. But whether he could really jump nearly 4 feet straight up, the science and tape suggest something a bit more grounded, not boring, just not physics defying. Still, even at 40 inches, Wilt was in the airspace where most players never even visit. Pelicans fan impersonation. On January 29, 2018, one Pelicans fan pulled off a prank straight out of a sports comedy. Right before tip-off against the Rockets, he casually stepped onto the court during warm-ups dressed head to toe in New Orleans team gear, jacket, sweats, sneakers, the whole disguise. He didn't just wander around either. He blended in like he'd just signed a 10-day contract. He joined the team's stretch line, did jumping jacks like a pro, and even called for the ball. And somehow, maybe out of reflex or just pure confusion, someone actually passed it to him. The fan caught it and took a shot. It was bad. Not missed the rim by an inch bad. More like your cousin who's never played basketball before bad. That shot blew his cover. A security guard on the baseline stepped in immediately. No drama, no takedown, just a walk of shame back to his seat. The fan didn't fight it. In fact, he looked like someone who just finished a dare and won $50. The crowd near him definitely got a laugh out of it. He wasn't thrown out, just told to cool it. It was the kind of moment that sticks in highlight reels. Not because of the athleticism, but because it looked like he belonged, until the shot gave him away. One missed jumper, one security escort, and an unforgettable prank pulled off in broad daylight. Kobe's unreleased rap album. Back in 1999, Kobe Bryant wasn't just wrecking NBA defenses, he was recording music. He signed with Sony Entertainment as part of a hip-hop group called Cheezaw, but the label quickly pivoted and launched him as a solo act. Between 1999 and 2000, he recorded a full album, unofficially titled Visions, packed with 16 tracks and an impressive list of collaborators. Tyra Banks, Destiny's Child, Black Thought, Brody Boy, and even a young 50 Cent were all involved. One track, Thug Poet, featured a sample from Nas, though Nas himself didn't actually record a verse. Kobe and Tyra even performed the lead single titled Kobe Live at the 2000 NBA All-Star Weekend. It was bold, but it didn't work. The single underperformed, and that was the end of the rollout. Sony dropped him. The album was shelved, unreleased for over 20 years. In 2021, just before Kobe's Hall of Fame induction, Visions finally leaked online. Underground platforms like On Thin Ice shared the full project, and fans got to hear what had been sitting in a vault for decades. Producers, including Russell Howard, later said Kobe put in serious work, but label politics and bad timing shut the whole thing down. The wildest part, during the video shoot for the song Kobe met Vanessa, who'd later become his wife. So yeah, the music didn't chart, but it did change his life. The album never officially dropped, but it remains a rare, fascinating piece of the Kobe legacy. One that almost nobody heard when it mattered, but everyone remembers now. Keith Bogans, trade shuffle. In late September 2014, Keith Bogans became the centerpiece of one of the strangest back-to-back trades in NBA memory, not because of his game, but because of his contract. On September 25th, the Celtics shipped him to the Cavaliers in exchange for 4 players and 2 second-round picks. Why? Because his contract, worth $5.3 million that season, was fully non-guaranteed. That gave Cleveland instant cap flexibility and let Boston generate a matching trade exception. But wait, 2 days later, the Cavs flipped him again. On September 27th, Bogans was sent to the Sixers along with a future second-round pick in exchange for a highly protected pick. And guess what? Cleveland walked away with another $5.3 million trade exception. 2 teams used the same player to unlock over $10 million in cap space without Bogans ever suiting up for either. It wasn't 4 trades in one day, like some fans still believe, but it was 2 trades in 3 days, both driven purely by financial maneuvering. And then, just over a week later, Philadelphia waived him. Done. No games, no minutes. Just one big cap tool passed around like a hot potato. This was a masterclass in how teams use non-guaranteed contracts to create flexibility. Boston and Cleveland didn't want Bogans. They wanted what his contract could unlock. By the time the dust settled, both teams had carved out huge trade exceptions, and Bogans' role was over before the season even started. He never touched the floor. He was traded twice in 72 hours, cut 10 days later, and became a perfect example of salary cap strategy over basketball value. Lance Thomas, low scoring, high rank. During the 2017-18 season, the New York Knicks voted Lance Thomas as one of their team captains. The other was Courtney Lee. Thomas wasn't blowing up box scores. He averaged just over 4 points per game and shot 38.2% from the field. Not exactly all-star numbers, but he still wore the captain badge. He played 73 games that season and started in 14. And even though he barely scratched the scoreboard most nights, his teammates clearly saw something deeper: leadership, consistency, maybe just someone who kept their locker clean. Whatever it was, he had their respect. It's rare in today's league for a player putting up numbers that low to be handed a leadership role from inside the roster. Usually, captains are top scorers, primary defenders, or veteran stars. But the Knicks chose Thomas, a player shooting below 40% from the floor, to help lead the team. That says a lot about how he carried himself behind the scenes. The fans didn't see captain behavior in the stat line, but the players must have seen it every day in practice and film sessions. So yeah, while other teams had captains averaging 20 points a night, the Knicks rolled with a guy who averaged 4. It's one of those quiet NBA stories that doesn't show up in highlights or leaderboards, but it sticks out when you look back. A captain with underwhelming stats, but clearly not an underwhelming presence. Earl Boykins, bench press feat. At 5'5" and about 135 pounds, Earl Boykins was one of the smallest players in NBA history, but pound for pound, possibly one of the strongest. Multiple sources confirmed he could bench press 315 pounds. That's over 2.3 times his body weight, and depending on the source, closer to 2.5. For someone that size, it's an insane number. And it wasn't a rumor. Slam Magazine, ESPN, Bleacher Report, and Anscape all backed it. During his time with the Wizards, he was reportedly the strongest player on the roster by body weight ratio. He didn't just max out at 315 once. Teammates and coaches saw him dominate in the weight room regularly. This wasn't just a circus stat. It had real implications on the court. At that size, most guards would get bullied defensively, but Boykins wasn't getting pushed around. He had the core and upper body strength to hold his ground against bigger players. He didn't rely on length or height. He relied on torque, leverage, and raw strength. While other guards leaned into speed and finesse, Boykins mixed in brute power most guys never had to develop. Bench pressing 315 pounds at that size isn't common in powerlifting, let alone the NBA. It's one of those stories that sounds like an exaggeration until you realize how many credible sources verified it. For a guy listed as the second shortest player in league history, Earl Boykins wasn't just surviving. He was thriving with strength numbers that still make weight rooms double-check the plates. Quincy Douby's 75-point game. On January 2nd, 2013, Quincy Douby went ballistic in China's CBA, scoring 75 points for the Zhejiang Golden Bulls. It happened during a 154-129 win over the Shanxi Brave Dragons, and it set a new single-game scoring record for the league. Douby was already known for filling it up, but this was something else entirely. He shot 25 of 38 from the field, knocked down 9 of 15 from deep, and hit 16 of 20 from the line. And the craziest part, he dropped 28 of those points in the fourth quarter alone. It wasn't garbage time stat padding. This was domination from start to finish. The previous CBA single-game scoring record had belonged to Andre Emmett, who had 71. Doobie broke that, and this wasn't his only record in China either. He also held the All-Star Game record with 44 points, and the finals record with 53. He wasn't just visiting the league, he was rewriting its scoring book. Global Times highlighted how it was the most points in franchise history. NBC Sports and Yahoo Sports shared clips and praised the performance. Slam Magazine didn't miss it either. For a player who'd already had an NBA run, Doobie found his groove overseas in the loudest way possible by putting up one of the most absurd scoring lines ever seen in any league. 75 points. Efficient, explosive, and unforgettable. It might not have made headlines in the US, but in the CBA, that night turned him into a legend. Rasheed Wallace's one-game Hawks era. On February 9, 2004, Rasheed Wallace was traded from the Portland Trail Blazers to the Atlanta Hawks. He came packaged with Wesley Person, while Portland got Sharif, Abdur-Rahim, Theo Ratliff, and Dan Dickau. That started one of the shortest and weirdest chapters in Rasheed's career. He suited up for Atlanta exactly once, on February 18th, against the New Jersey Nets. He didn't coast through it either. Wallace logged 42 minutes, dropped 20 points, grabbed 6 rebounds, blocked 5 shots, and went 8 for 24 from the field. He even took 6 threes and hit 1. It was all in a losing effort though. The Hawks came up short. Then came the twist. Just 1 day later, Wallace was shipped out again. This time in a 3-team deal that sent him to the Detroit Pistons. Atlanta didn't even let the jersey get cold. While Rasheed was hanging out with a teammate at a Cheesecake Factory bar, he found out the Hawks era was over before it ever really started. That one game, it became trivia gold. Wallace's stop in Atlanta lasted 10 days total. He played 1 game, dropped a full stat line, and was off to Detroit, where he'd go on to help the Pistons win the championship. Later that season, he never looked back. It's the kind of NBA story that feels made up. A former All-Star playing one random night in Atlanta, then winning a title in another city weeks later. Rasheed didn't leave a legacy in Atlanta, but he left a stat sheet, a box score, and a bizarre NBA footnote that's still unforgettable. Vladimir Radmanovic's snowboarding lie. In February 2007, during the NBA All-Star break, Lakers forward Vladimir Radmanovic dislocated his right shoulder while snowboarding in Park City, Utah. There was just one problem. His contract explicitly banned that kind of activity, and instead of coming clean, he tried to cover it up. He told the Lakers he'd slipped on a patch of ice while walking. That was the story. No snowboard, no slopes, just a clumsy moment on the sidewalk. A few days later, the truth started eating at him. Radmanovic admitted he lied. He told the press that he panicked, and that trying to hide the real story made him feel worse. His words were blunt. He did a silly thing, and then doubled down with a lie. The Lakers weren't amused. Coach Phil Jackson and GM Mitch Kupchak weren't just annoyed by the snowboarding, they were irritated by the dishonesty. The team fined him $500,000. That was nearly 10% of his salary that season, which sat around $5.2 million. They discussed harsher penalties, like voiding his contract, but decided the fine was enough. It was a lesson in what not to do when you're a professional athlete with millions on the line. Radmanovic kept playing for the Lakers, but the moment stuck with him. The shoulder injury took time to heal, but the bigger bruise might have been his reputation, hurt not by the snowboard, but by the lie afterward. No suspension, no release, just a $500,000 reality check and a very public mistake. Sleepy Floyd's record quarter. Eric Sleepy Floyd was never a star. Over his career, he averaged around 4 points per game on 33% shooting. Not exactly the profile of a playoff legend. But on May 10th, 1987, something bizarre happened. For 1 quarter, he became unstoppable. The Warriors were on the verge of being swept by the Lakers in Game 4 of the Western Conference semifinals. They were down 102-88 entering the 4th. Then Floyd exploded. He dropped 29 points in that quarter alone, still the most ever scored in a single playoff quarter in NBA history. That record has stood untouched for decades. He wasn't doing it with volume either. He was torching the Lakers' defense with surgical efficiency. He hit 12 straight shots in that quarter, another postseason record, and ended the night with 51 points. He added 10 assists and 4 steals, completely flipping the game and leading Golden State to a 129-121 win. It was a bizarre moment where a player known more for quiet stat lines than scoring bursts delivered one of the most explosive playoff quarters ever. The Warriors still lost the series in 5 games, and Floyd's career returned to its normal rhythm. He never became an all-star. He didn't ride the wave into a breakout season, but for 1 night, 1 quarter, he went off like few others ever have. That's the strange thing about basketball. You can average 4 points your whole career and still drop the most ever in a playoff quarter. Sleepy Floyd didn't need a Hall of Fame resume. He needed 12 minutes. Miami retires Jordan's jersey. On April 11th, 2003, the Miami Heat did something no NBA team had ever done. They retired the jersey of a player who never played for them. That player was Michael Jordan. Number 23 went up into the rafters at American Airlines Arena, even though Jordan never suited up in a Heat uniform, never scored a point for Miami, and never played a single minute for the franchise. It happened during Jordan's final season in the league, while he was with the Washington Wizards. Before a Heat Wizards game, Pat Riley made the announcement. In front of the crowd, he said, "In honor of your greatness and for all you've done for the game of basketball, no one will ever wear number 23 for the Miami Heat." It wasn't about rivalry or history with the team. It was pure respect. Jordan became the first player in NBA history to have his jersey retired by a team he never played for. The Heat, at that point, had only a handful of retired numbers, and one of them belonged to a guy who never played a single second in their jersey. Today, if you look at Miami's list of retired numbers, you'll see names like D. Wade, Alonzo Mourning, and then Michael Jordan. No asterisk, no footnote, just respect. The move was controversial to some, but it's never been reversed. The number 23 is off limits in Miami, permanently, for one reason only. Michael Jordan was too important to the game to be ignored, even by a team he never played for. Michael Pietrus. Back in 2003, Pietrus was a top European prospect coming out of France, but he made one thing very clear. He didn't want to play in Boston. He flat out refused to attend their pre-draft workout. The reason? He wanted a warmer climate and a team that fit his playing style better. Subtle? Not really. The Celtics were interested, but they never got the chance. The Golden State Warriors took him at pick number 11, and that was that. No Boston, no snow, no awkward introductions. Fast forward to December 2011, and things took a weird turn. Pietrus cleared waivers after being released by Phoenix. And guess who signed him? Boston. Yes, the same team he once avoided now had him in green. To his credit, Pietrus didn't bring any drama. He showed up, played hard, hit threes, and locked in defensively. Despite the rocky pre-draft history, he became a fan favorite almost immediately. He was a key piece of that Celtics squad that reached the Eastern Conference Finals in 2012, especially known for his perimeter defense and clutch corner shooting. So yeah, it started with him wanting nothing to do with Boston, but it ended with him helping them on a deep playoff run. Funny how that works. Phantom buzzer game. On November 6th, 1969, the Chicago Bulls faced the Atlanta Hawks in a regular season matchup that would go down as one of the strangest endings in NBA history. The Hawks were up 124-122 with 1 second left on the clock. Bulls center Tom Boerwinkle tipped in a shot that should have tied the game, but then chaos hit. Referee Bob Raquel waved the basket off, claiming he'd heard the final buzzer before the shot dropped. Even though the scoreboard still showed 1 second remaining, timekeeper Jim Sari said the buzzer hadn't sounded. Bulls coach Dick Motta and general manager Pat Williams were furious. Raquel stood by his call, and although the second official, Jack Madden, admitted he didn't hear any buzzer, he didn't overrule Raquel. The Bulls filed a protest, and in a rare move, NBA Commissioner Walter Kennedy upheld it. It was the first protest the league had ever accepted at the time. The ruling called for the game to be resumed from the exact moment in question, tied at 124 with 1 second left. Hawks possession. But even the do-over went sideways. When they replayed that 1 second before the team's next matchup, the timekeeper forgot to start the clock. No buzzer, no play. Officials declared the second had expired anyway and sent the game to overtime. The Hawks ended up winning the completed game 142-137. One tip-in, one phantom buzzer. One of the weirdest rulings the NBA has ever had to sort out. And it all started with a clock that said 1 second left, and a referee who swore he heard something no one else did. Auerbach's cigars. Red Auerbach didn't just coach with swagger, he literally lit one. When he believed a Celtics win was sealed, out came the cigar, right there on the bench. He'd just sit back and puff like it was a staff meeting instead of an NBA game. That cigar became more than a habit. It turned into a declaration. He wasn't yelling or throwing clipboards. He'd just say, "I did my job," light up, and watch the last seconds drain out while his players handled the rest. But that move wasn't just for fun. It got under the skin of the other team. Players and coaches hated it. It wasn't just a celebration. It was a dagger. One rival even said he didn't care about beating the Celtics. All he wanted was to smoke a cigar and shove it in Auerbach's face after a loss. At one game in Cincinnati, fans got 5,000 cigars, ready to celebrate beating Boston. Bold move, but the Celtics won, and those cigars stayed cold. It backfired completely. Even Auerbach's own players were a little thrown off. Bob Cousy once said it made everyone uncomfortable. The mood on the floor was already hot, and then here comes Red, lighting up, like it was a party. He once lit a cigar with 10 seconds left while only up by 3. Then came a turnover. Game tied. He was furious, but still claimed he didn't blow it. Over time, that cigar became iconic. He's often credited with inventing the victory cigar, and now it's part of NBA history, locked in with every puff of Celtics dominance. Bubba Wells fouled out in just 3 minutes. Don Nelson sent Bubba Wells into a game with one job: foul Dennis Rodman. That's it. Not score, not defend, just foul. It was December 29th, 1997, and Dallas was facing Chicago. Nelson wasn't trying to stop Rodman's rebounding or defense. He wanted him on the free throw line. Rodman's struggles there were well known, so this was an early swing at what later became the hack-a-shack tactic. Wells got to work immediately. In less than 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 43 seconds to be exact, he racked up 6 fouls and fouled out. Fastest disqualification in NBA history. Rodman, though, didn't exactly fold. He knocked down 9 of his 12 shots from the line. That totally spoiled the plan and helped push the Bulls to a 111-105 win. It wasn't just a bad night for Wells. It was a full-on strategy crash. Imagine being subbed in just to commit violations, and then the guy you're targeting decides it's his moment to make shots. Brutal. Nelson's gamble turned into a gift for Chicago. That moment became infamous, not just for the record, but for launching a tactic that stuck around. Later stars like Shaq would see entire quarters devolve into foul and pray sequences. But this wasn't polished strategy, it was experimental chaos. And Wells, the poor rookie, became a trivia answer. He never got a real chance to play that night. He just fouled again, then fouled some more. And when he walked off, the Bulls just kept on scoring. Rodman didn't just survive the plan, he buried it with a grin and a box score full of free throws. Scott Pollard on Survivor. Scott Pollard didn't just leave his size 13 footprint on the NBA, he also dragged that giant personality all the way to a tropical beach in Survivor, Khao Rong. The season aired in 2016, but was filmed a year earlier in Cambodia. Pollard started out on the Tatang tribe, switched to Gondal, and after the merge, landed on Dara. He made it 27 days, finishing 8th out of 18 players. That also meant he earned a seat on the jury, where he got to sit, judge, and probably sweat through his hair extensions like everyone else. The guy may have played 11 NBA seasons, but Survivor is a different beast. No team bus, no Gatorade, just coconuts and betrayal. Early on, Pollard played a solid strategic game, but once the merge happened, things went sideways. He had this plan to link up for a super idle move with Tai Trang, but Tai bailed. That left Scott completely exposed. And boom, he got blindsided. Back in his basketball days, Pollard was known for being loud, physical, and fully committed to the chaos. So honestly, he fit right in. He was part of that 2008 Celtics title team. But on Survivor, there were no rings, just rice and scheming. His vibe was more locker room brute than beach ninja, but that's what made it fun. He didn't try to hide who he was. He didn't care about looking sneaky. He just wanted to dominate, socially and physically. Still, the jungle had other plans. He made the jury, but not the final 3. And like in the league, it only takes one bad play or one backstab to end your run. Kevin Knox's Summer League breakout. Kevin Knox came flying into the 2018 Summer League and lit the place up. Over 4 games, he averaged over 21 points, 6.5 boards, and more than 2 assists. That got him a first-team nod and the attention of basically every Knicks fan desperate for a new star. He looked athletic, confident, and borderline unstoppable in transition. The highlight dunks were there. The wingspan looked terrifying. People saw flashes of a two-way scorer who could anchor a rebuild, but that's where it stopped. The hype didn't carry over. His regular season numbers never matched that short Summer League burst. Inefficiency dragged him down fast. He shot 35% from the field, 36 from deep, and barely cleared 80 at the line. Turnovers outpaced assists, and that's never a stat you want attached to your name. By the time the shine wore off, Knox was bouncing around teams. No consistent role, no real momentum. Just a string of contracts and forgettable stat lines. Fans started throwing his name around as the classic cautionary tale, great in July, invisible by November. Fast forward to 2024, and there's Knox again, suiting up in Summer League for the Warriors. This time, it was 17.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, and a flash of that old confidence. It earned him a 10-day contract, and then a standard deal. Another shot, but it's not about promise anymore. It's about survival. His story's a reminder that Summer League stardom doesn't always mean you've made it. Sometimes it just means you've got a little more time before the league decides whether to keep your name in the rotation or off the roster entirely. Suns sell their stars for cash and useless picks. The Suns grabbed Luol Deng with the 7th pick in 2004, but shipped him to the Bulls before he could even unpack. In return, they got Jackson Vroman, a future first-rounder that became the 21st pick in 2005, and some cash. Dang went on to become a two-time All-Star and a steady forward any team would love to have. Vroman barely made a ripple, and that future pick turned into Nate Robinson, who they then traded away. One fan broke it down bluntly. They basically turned a 7th pick in a stacked draft into less than $5 million. 2 years later, deja vu hit. The Suns drafted Rajon Rondo with the 21st pick in 2006, then immediately sent him, Brian Grant, and cash to Boston for a future pick. That pick became Rudy Fernandez, who was flipped for more cash without playing a game for Phoenix. Meanwhile, Rondo grew into a 4-time All-Star, an NBA champion, and a lockdown defense leader for the Celtics. These choices didn't just sting in the short term, they cut off a path to sustainable success. Instead of developing young stars, Phoenix chased quick wins that never led to a title. Boston, on the other hand, used Rondo to fuel a championship core around Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, showing exactly what the Suns had let slip away. Lakers, bet big, on Dang, and Mozgov. In the summer of 2016, the Lakers handed Luol Deng a 4-year deal worth $72 million, and Timofey Mozgov a 4-year deal worth $64 million. That's a combined $136 million during a rebuild right after Kobe Bryant retired. The roster was built around young players like Brandon Ingram and D'Angelo Russell, so pouring huge money into aging vets was a gamble from the start. Mozgov had just fallen out of Cleveland's rotation, yet got a payday fit for a star. Deng, though respected, had already posted his lowest scoring average since his rookie year. By season's end, both were benched, so the young core could get more minutes. They stayed inactive for the rest of the year, eating up cap space while not contributing on the floor. The deals also boxed the Lakers out of chasing elite free agents in the following summers. Jeanie Buss even admitted that the best possible outcome that year was keeping their first-round pick by losing enough games. Not exactly a ringing endorsement. Dang's contract aged especially badly. He played just 57 games over 2 seasons, and the team stretched his deal, paying him $5 million annually from 2020 through 2022. Without him playing a single minute, that's over $1 million per game, he actually suited up. These signings didn't just waste money. They slowed the rebuild, triggered a front office overhaul, and became a textbook example of why rebuilding teams shouldn't overpay veterans past their peak. Suns gamble on Bender and Chris. In 2016, Phoenix took Dragon Bender with the 4th pick, banking on his size, versatility, and international upside. Instead, he averaged barely over 5 points a game and never became the frontcourt piece they hoped for. The real sting is knowing they passed on proven scorers like Jamal Murray and Buddy Hield, who became strong contributors elsewhere. That same night, they doubled down. Phoenix traded the 13th and 28th picks, the rights to Bogdan Bogdanovic, and a future second-rounder to Sacramento to move up to 8th for Marquise Chris. Chris flashed early promise, even making the all-rookie second team, but his development stalled. He bounced around the league before fading out entirely. Losing Bogdanovic, who went on to be a productive scorer and playmaker, only made that trade look worse. Both moves drained valuable assets without giving Phoenix a return anywhere close to what was given up. Passing on players like Sabonis or keeping their draft capital could have set up a far better core around Devin Booker. Instead, they burned prime opportunities on short-lived projects. The ripple effects were huge. The missed talent ended up strengthening rival teams, while Phoenix slogged through more rebuilding years. This draft is still talked about as one of their biggest modern missteps, a glaring example of poor scouting, risky trades, and a front office willing to overpay in assets for potential that never materialized. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting it every day. Thanks. Anyways, Sixers choose Harris over Butler. After the 2018 to 2019 season, Philadelphia locked in Harris with a 5-year, $180 million deal and sent Jimmy Butler to Miami in a sign and trade. While Butler's viral "Harris over me" line made headline, the front office's real choice was keeping Ben Simmons as the long-term partner for Joel Embiid instead of fully committing to Butler. The gamble on Harris hasn't aged well. His contract became one of the league's least efficient, paying star money for production many saw as replaceable. Butler, meanwhile, immediately proved his worth, leading the Heat to the finals and showing the exact playoff toughness the Sixers let walk. Behind the scenes, the fit issues mattered. Butler and Simmons didn't mesh, and the organization sided with Simmons, betting on his development over Butler's proven track record. That decision left Philadelphia trying to force a roster construction that never quite worked, piling on big deals for Harris and Al Horford that created clunky lineups and rotation headaches. The fallout was costly, multiple coaching changes, stalled playoff runs, and a team identity still in flux. All the while, Butler thrived in Miami, reinforcing that the Sixers had let go of a premier two-way leader in his prime. This moment became a textbook example of how prioritizing harmony and potential over-tested postseason success can slam shut a championship window. Timberwolves give Wiggins the max after a promise. In 2017, Minnesota was ready to hand 22-year-old Andrew Wiggins a 5-year, $148 million rookie extension. But before signing off, owner Glenn Taylor wanted more than just a signature. He called Wiggins in for a face-to-face meeting, not to talk contracts, but to hear a verbal pledge that he'd push his game forward. Taylor asked him to commit to becoming better in every area, sharper on defense, more aggressive on the boards, and more consistent overall. It wasn't a legal clause, just a personal agreement. The message was clear. The money came with the expectation that Wiggins would grow into the star his draft status promised. The conversation became public, with media outlets framing it as the Timberwolves only offering the deal after hearing Wiggins say he'd improve. 1 week before the season tipped off, on October 11th, Wiggins signed the max extension, officially ending months of speculation. The team had their young cornerstone locked in, and the franchise made it clear they were betting big on his potential, rather than just his past production. It's one of those rare moments where a massive NBA contract was preceded by an old-fashioned handshake-style assurance, the kind that puts just as much weight on words as on the zeros in the paycheck. Lakers let Caruso walk over tax concerns. In August 2021, Alex Caruso hit free agency fresh off helping the Lakers win a championship with high-energy play and elite defense. Chicago put a 4-year, $37 million offer on the table, and Caruso accepted. The Lakers, worried about luxury tax costs, came in way lower, a 3-year, $21 million offer. Even when Caruso floated a 2-year, $20 million compromise, the front office passed. Reports said the Lakers hoped he'd throw them a bone to help their tax bill, despite him proving his value on both ends. He'd been a perfect fit alongside LeBron James, but instead of keeping that chemistry, they chose to save money. The fallout was immediate. Caruso's defensive instincts, hustle, and knack for making winning plays weren't replaced. Talon Horton-Tucker and other signings didn't match his impact. The Lakers stumbled to a 33-49 record in 2022, missing the playoffs. Caruso thrived in Chicago and later with Oklahoma City, earning an $81 million extension and playing a major role in a finals run. For the Lakers, the choice is now widely seen as one of Rob Pelinka's bigger mistakes, letting a fan favorite and proven contributor leave to trim a tax bill. It's become a reminder that cutting costs can sometimes cut out a team's competitive edge. Mavericks let Brunson walk for nothing. In 2022, Jalen Brunson had just carried a huge load in the playoffs, stepping up when Luka was injured and helping Dallas reach the Western Conference Finals. The front office had 2 earlier chances to lock him up on a 4-year, $55 million extension, but they passed both times. Reports say they hesitated to commit, possibly to keep him trade eligible, but no deal ever came. By July, Brunson was gone, signing a 4-year, $104 million contract with the Knicks. In New York, he became a 2-time All-Star and made the All-NBA second team, turning into exactly the kind of leader Dallas now wishes they'd kept. His scoring, poise, and leadership have been a driving force for the Knicks' rise. The Mavericks, meanwhile, scrambled to fill the hole. They brought in Kyrie Irving and later traded Luka for Anthony Davis, but those moves haven't delivered the same stability or success. Fans and analysts point to Brunson's departure as a franchise-altering blunder, especially with his own public confirmation that he approached Dallas twice, ready to sign the $55 million deal, and was turned down both times. It's now one of the clearest examples of a front office undervaluing a rising star, watching him flourish elsewhere, and paying the long-term price for short-term indecision. Bulls trade. Aldridge. On draft night, on June 28, 2006, Chicago used the 2nd overall pick on LaMarcus Aldridge, only to ship his rights to Portland for the 4th pick, Tyrese Thomas plus Victor Kriapa. That same night, they drafted Rodney Carney at 16 and flipped him to Philadelphia for Thabo Sefolosha, cash, and a 2nd-round pick. Aldridge went on to be a 7-time All-Star, earn multiple All-NBA honors, and score over 20,000 career points. He became one of the league's most consistent and skilled big men, anchoring the Blazers and later the Spurs. Thomas, meanwhile, gave Chicago modest rookie numbers of about 5 points and under 4 rebounds a game. His flashes of athleticism never turned into long-term production, and his stint as a Bull was short-lived. The missed opportunity was huge. Aldridge could have been a reliable front court partner for Luol Deng and Kirk Hinrich during a competitive stretch, giving the Bulls a true inside-out balance. Instead, they gambled on raw athletic potential over proven skill and lost out on a cornerstone. In hindsight, the trade has been labeled one of the franchise's more regrettable draft night moves. The contrast between Aldridge's longevity and Thomas' fleeting impact makes the decision stand out as a clear miscalculation that altered Chicago's trajectory for years. Suns let Joe Johnson go. In 2005, fresh off a 62-win season, Joe Johnson hit restricted free agency after proving himself as a sharpshooting, versatile piece next to Steve Nash, Stat, and Shawn Marion. He was unhappy with his role and felt lowballed in extension talks, with negotiations reportedly coming down to less than $1 million difference. Johnson asked owner Robert Sarver not to match Atlanta's offer, making it clear he wanted out. On August 19th, Phoenix agreed to a sign and trade with the Hawks, sending Johnson for Boris Diaw, 2 future first-rounders, and a trade exception. The move even triggered an ownership dispute in Atlanta, with minority owner Steve Belkin initially blocking the deal before selling his stake, allowing it to go through. Johnson went on to become a multiple-time All-Star in Atlanta, averaging over 20 points and anchoring their rebuild. Diaw did win Most Improved Player in 2006 and played a valuable role, but the Suns lost an elite scorer and secondary playmaker right in their prime contention window. Johnson later said that without his playoff injury, or if he'd stayed, the Suns might have won a championship that year. In hindsight, it's viewed as one of Phoenix's costliest decisions of that era, trading away a rising star who perfectly fit their system for a return that never matched his long-term impact. Magic draft, Fran Vasquez, never see him play. In 2005, Orlando used the 11th pick on Spanish big man Fran Vasquez, hoping he'd pair with Dwight Howard to lock down their front court for years. Just a month later, he shocked the team by announcing he'd stay in Spain and sign with Acasvayu Girona instead of joining the NBA. That single decision made him one of only 2 lottery picks ever to log 0 NBA minutes. The cost wasn't just in wasted hype. The Magic passed on players like Danny Granger, David Lee, Monta Ellis, and Gerald Green, all of whom went on to have productive careers. They held on to his draft rights for years, even carrying a few million in cap space tied to him early on, which meant a dead roster slot for a player who was never coming over. The absence hurt their front court depth and development plan. Executives at the time publicly insisted it wasn't a mistake, but it's since become one of the most infamous moments in franchise draft history. The saga dragged on until 2023, when the Magic finally renounced his rights, nearly 2 decades after picking him. It remains a textbook cautionary tale, a high lottery selection that produced 0 value, disrupted roster building, and lingered like a ghost over the team's planning far longer than anyone would have imagined. Rockets swapped Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook. In the summer of 2019, Houston sent Chris Paul 2 future first-round picks and 2 pick swaps to Oklahoma City to reunite James Harden with his former teammate Russell Westbrook. Reports made it clear Harden had pushed for the move, even though it meant pairing 2 ball-dominant MVPs with similar styles. The trade was flashy, but it ripped out a system built around Paul's efficient playmaking. While Westbrook brought energy and athleticism, the fit issues showed quickly. Both guards needed the ball, and their high usage often cramped the offense. February was the high point, when each averaged over 30 points and 5 assists, but the overall chemistry never fully clicked. The cost went beyond fit. Losing Paul and those future picks stripped Houston of flexibility. The team finished 44-28 in the regular season, then bowed out in the second round against the Lakers. Within a year, the gamble was over. Westbrook was shipped to Washington for John Wall and a protected first-rounder, essentially admitting the experiment had failed. What was meant to be a leap toward a championship instead became a short-lived detour, draining assets and breaking a roster core that had already been a contender. It's remembered as one of the Rockets' most ambitious swings and one of their quickest retreats. Knicks trade for Andrea Bargnani. In July 2013, New York sent Marcus Camby, Steve Novak, Quentin Richardson, a 2016 first-round pick plus second-rounders in 2014 and 2017 to Toronto for the former number 1 overall pick. By then, Bargnani's reputation had shifted from potential star to injury-prone scorer with shaky defense and minimal rebound, making the price tag steep. The trade drained both depth and draft capital, leaving the Knicks with less flexibility to build around Carmelo Anthony and Tyson Chandler. Losing Novak's shooting and Camby's veteran presence hurt spacing and bench stability, and those future picks could have been leveraged for longer-term help. On the court, Bargnani's tenure was rocky. His style didn't mesh with the roster, and he struggled to impact games beyond occasional scoring bursts. In January 2014, a torn ligament in his left elbow ended his season early. Without his contribution, and with the roster thinner, New York went 37-45, missing the playoffs. The following year collapsed entirely, with a 17-65 record, one of the worst in franchise history. Looking back, the move is widely considered one of the Knicks' most lopsided trades of the modern era. They surrendered valuable assets for a player whose production never matched his cost, and the decision became a cautionary tale of chasing a name rather than building sustainable success. Mavericks let Steve Nash walk. In 2004, Dallas faced a decision on their 30-year-old point guard hitting free agency. They offered about 4 years at $9 million annually, with only part of a 5th year guaranteed. Phoenix came in with 6 years and $63 million, and the Mavericks decided not to match. Mark Cuban and the front office leaned on medical advice, suggesting Nash's body might not hold up, and they wanted to prioritize building around Dirk Nowitzki and a younger core. Nash's move to Phoenix flipped that narrative fast. He won back-to-back MVP awards, became the face of an explosive offense, and took the Suns deep into the playoffs. His ball movement and pace transformed the league's offensive trends. Meanwhile, Cuban has since admitted the choice still bothers him, and even Dirk has hinted that it's one of the most second-guessed calls in their run together. Fans never forgot either. As they've put it bluntly, the Mavericks didn't trade Nash. They let him walk for nothing. What they lost wasn't just talent, but a Hall of Fame leader who could have extended their contention window. In hindsight, financial caution and fear of decline cost Dallas far more than it saved, making this one of the franchise's most regretted what-ifs. Lakers trade Zubac for Muscala. On February 7, 2019, the Lakers sent 21-year-old Zubac and Michael Beasley to the Clippers for Mike Muscala. The idea was that Muscala's shooting would stretch the floor, but the gamble fizzled fast. Zubac was already showing real growth as a rim protector and rebounder. Once in a Clippers jersey, he stepped right into a starting role, becoming a steady two-way presence and one of the league's more reliable big men. The Lakers, on the other hand, got just 17 games from Muscala, who averaged under 6 points and barely 3 rebounds. His impact was minimal, and he didn't return after the season. Critics quickly pounced, calling the move one of the league's more baffling trades, especially since it handed a young, improving center to a crosstown rival for essentially a short rental. For the Clippers, Zubac became part of their long-term rotation. For the Lakers, it became a case study in undervaluing developing talent for a quick fix that never materialized. The long-term sting isn't just that Zubac thrived, it's that the Lakers have since scrambled to find consistent center play while watching him do exactly what they needed, just across the hall. It remains one of their most puzzling modern roster decisions, remembered as a lopsided swap that aged badly, almost immediately. Kings pick Bagley over Luka. In the 2018 draft, Sacramento held the second pick and chose Marvin Bagley out of Duke. Luka went third to Atlanta, who immediately traded him to Dallas. Then GM Vlade Divac later said he passed on Luka because he didn't think pairing him with De'Aaron Fox made sense, believing 2 ball-dominant guards would overlap too much. That logic hasn't aged well. Luka has since become a perennial All-NBA first-team player, Rookie of the Year, and the face of the Mavericks, leading them on deep playoff runs, including a finals appearance. Bagley, despite making the all-rookie first team, battled injuries and inconsistency, never establishing himself as a franchise cornerstone. After 3.5 seasons, the Kings traded him away. The opportunity cost was massive. Luka's talent and offensive engine could have transformed Sacramento's trajectory, and the decision looks even worse knowing the same draft class produced other stars like Jaren Jackson and Trae Young. Passing on a generational prospect for fit concerns is now viewed as a critical miscalculation. This choice reshaped the NBA landscape. Dallas landed a superstar, while Sacramento's rebuild stretched on longer than it might have. Years later, it remains one of the most dissected draft night decisions in the league history, both for what it cost the Kings and for how dramatically it elevated another franchise. Celtics trade Chauncey Billups as a rookie. On February 18, 1998, Boston sent rookie number 3 pick Chauncey Billups, D. Brown, Roy Rogers, and John Thomas to Toronto for Kenny Anderson, Popeye Jones, and Jan Tabak. Rick Pitino, running the team as coach and president, wanted veterans to push a win-now approach, despite the roster's flaws. Billups was averaging just over 11 points and 4 assists in 25 minutes, showing the kind of upside that made him a top 3 pick. The return didn't come close to matching that potential. Anderson was a solid point guard, but didn't change the team's trajectory. Jones played only 18 games, and Tabak barely contributed over 3 points and rebounds a night. Pitino later admitted the move was short-sighted, saying they should have taken their lumps and kept Billups. The Celtics finished 36-46, missing the playoffs, and gave up on a player who would become a 5-time All-Star, Finals MVP, and Hall of Famer. The trade is still viewed, though, as one of Boston's biggest missteps, a classic case of chasing short-term stability at the expense of long-term greatness. Billups went on to lead the Pistons to a championship, while Boston was left with a cautionary tale about the cost of impatience. Clippers draft Michael Olowokandi, first overall. In 1998, holding the top pick, the Clippers chose the 7'1" center from Pacific, a late bloomer touted for his size and athletic upside despite a limited basketball resume. The gamble never paid off. Over his career, Olowokandi averaged about 8 points and 7 rebounds, battling injuries and failing to develop into the dominant presence they'd envisioned. The real sting came from who they passed on. That draft produced future Hall of Famers and All-Stars like Dirk Nowitzki, Vince Carter, Paul Pierce, and Anton Jameson. Any of them could have reshaped the Clippers' fortune. Instead, they went with positional need over proven production. Even then, GM Elgin Baylor admitted the choice carried risk, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who tried mentoring Olowokandi, later called him talented but uncoachable, a trait that stalled his growth. This wasn't just a bad pick. It became a symbol of the Clippers' mismanagement in that era. With a different choice, they might have had a legitimate star to build around during one of the franchise's many down cycles. Instead, the number 1 selection turned into one of the most frequently cited draft busts in NBA history, a cautionary tale of chasing upside without weighing readiness or temperament. Warriors trade Chris Webber. After one season, in 1993, Golden State landed Webber with the first overall pick, and he delivered right away, 17.5 points, over 9 rebounds a game, Rookie of the Year honors, and a 50-32 record with a playoff berth. But behind the scenes, things soured fast. Webber clashed with coach and GM Don Nelson, who wanted him to play as a post-up center instead of the versatile power forward role he preferred. With a 1-year escape clause in his rookie deal, Webber forced the team's hand by demanding a trade. The Warriors sent him to Washington for Tom Gugliotta and 3 future first-round picks in 1996, 1998, and 2000. Gugliotta was gone before the end of the season, and the picks never came close to matching Webber's value. Losing a generational young star after just 1 year crippled Golden State's trajectory. The team missed the playoffs for the next 12 seasons, cycling through coaches and rosters, while Webber went on to multiple All-Star selections and an All-NBA career. This wasn't just a bad trade. It became a symbol of how internal clashes and rigid philosophies can sabotage a franchise's future. For Warriors fans, it remains one of the clearest examples of what happens when short-term control wins out over long-term vision. Raptors trade Vince Carter for minimal return. In December 2004, Toronto sent their franchise star to New Jersey for Alonzo Mourning, Eric Williams, Aaron Williams, and 2 future first-round picks. Mourning refused to report, was bought out, and signed with Miami. The Williams brothers played limited minutes and were eventually moved on. The draft picks became Joey Graham in 2005 and Ronaldo Balkman in 2006, neither approaching Carter's impact. Carter was more than just an all-star. He was Air Cannon, the player who put the Raptors on the map, brought them their first playoff berth, and helped forge a basketball identity in a hockey-first city. Moving him for so little gutted both the roster and the fan base's morale. While tensions with management and injuries played into the breakup, the return was almost entirely short-term filler. Carter thrived with the Nets, making playoff runs and continuing his all-star level production, while Toronto entered a period of mediocrity without a clear centerpiece. This trade remains one of the most lopsided in league history, a cautionary tale about letting a star go without securing meaningful assets in return. Nearly 2 decades later, Carter's number 15 now hangs in the rafters, but the sting of how he left still serves as a reminder of how quickly a franchise's trajectory can change when talent is mismanaged. Trailblazers pass on Michael Jordan. In 1984, Portland had the 2nd pick and went with Sam Bowie, a 7'1" center from Kentucky who'd already dealt with serious leg injuries. They passed on Michael Jordan, who went 3rd to Chicago. Portland's logic was all about filling a gap at center, since they already had Clyde Drexler and Jim Paxson at shooting guard. General manager Stu Inman later admitted he didn't recognize just how great Jordan would become. Bowie had flashes of skill, but his time in Portland was defined by injuries. Over 5 seasons, he played only 139 games, and multiple leg fractures forced him into repeated surgeries. That meant Portland never got the dominant big man they hoped for. Meanwhile, Jordan exploded into a global icon. He won 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, and transformed basketball into an international phenomenon. The contrast between what Portland got and what they passed up makes this one of the most talked about missteps in sports history. This wasn't just a bad pick. It became the textbook example of why teams can't draft solely for positional need. Portland's choice didn't just shape their future, it altered the course of the entire league. The ripple effects touched Chicago, the NBA's popularity, and the way front offices think about talent evaluation forever. Suns draft Josh Jackson over future All-Stars. In 2017, Phoenix held the 4th pick and chose Josh Jackson, a 6'8" wing from Kansas. He even skipped a workout with Boston to make sure he landed with the Suns. At the time, the choice made sense to a lot of people. They wanted more defense and athleticism alongside Devin Booker, and Jackson was seen as a top 2-way option for a rebuilding roster. Jackson's rookie year brought enough promise to land him on the all-rookie second team. But things didn't trend upward. By year 2, his stats leveled off at around 11 points and 4 rebounds per game, and frustration on the court showed through technical fouls. 2 seasons in, Phoenix traded him away, ending what was supposed to be a long-term fit. The sting of that decision got worse, as players taken after him thrived. De'Aaron Fox became a speedy all-star guard. Donovan Mitchell grew into a franchise leader with multiple all-star nods. Bam Adebayo developed into a defensive anchor and reliable scorer for Miami. Each of them delivered the consistent production and leadership Phoenix had been missing. By 2022, a Bleacher Report redraft dropped Jackson all the way to pick 26, showing just how far his stock had fallen. For the Suns, it was a lesson in valuing proven potential over perceived positional need, and it's remembered as a choice that could have completely altered their path had they gone in another direction. Wizards draft John Vesely, 6th overall. In 2011, Washington used their 6th pick on Jan Vesely, a Czech forward with impressive athleticism and a reputation for high-flying play. Scouts saw him as a unique blend of size, speed, and leaping ability, and some even compared him to Blake Griffin's overseas twin. John Wall later admitted that the team believed that comparison at the time. The plan was to slot Vesely in as a versatile frontcourt piece who could run the floor and energize a rebuilding roster. Instead, his NBA production never came close to those expectations. Over 3 seasons, he averaged fewer than 5 points per game and never carved out a steady role. His game didn't translate against NBA defenses, and his lack of polish made it hard for him to adapt. The problem wasn't just his own play, it was what the pick represented. With a high lottery slot, Washington had the chance to land a real building block. Players like Klay Thompson were still on the board, and missing out on that level of talent stalled their progress in the early John Wall years. This wasn't an isolated misstep either. The Vesely selection highlighted a pattern of questionable drafting decisions that limited the team's long-term growth. By the time Washington moved on, the damage was done, and the choice became one of the defining reminders of how risky it can be to chase athletic potential without proven skills to back it up. Bulls trade Ron Artest before his prime. In February of 2002, Chicago sent Ron Artest, Brad Miller, Ron Mercer, and Kevin Ollie to Indiana. Coming back were Jalen Rose, Travis Best, Norm Richardson, and a 2nd-round pick. At the time, the Bulls gave up nearly 59% of their scoring in one move. Indiana quickly cashed in. Artest developed into one of the league's toughest perimeter defenders and earned all-star recognition. Miller wasn't far behind, becoming a reliable scoring and rebounding presence in the Pacers' frontcourt and grabbing an all-star spot himself. Both players provided the kind of long-term production every rebuilding team dreams about. Chicago's return didn't come close. Rose was solid offensively, but only appeared in 128 games before moving on. Best played sparingly, and Richardson saw almost no court time at all. That 2nd-round pick didn't change the franchise's direction either. Looking back, the trade essentially swapped 2 future All-Stars for short-term scoring help and minimal depth. For a team in transition, it drained away young talent right when patience could have paid off. It's remembered as one of the franchise's most lopsided deals, and a cautionary tale about rushing to make moves instead of letting developing players reach their full potential. Kings draft Thomas Robinson over Damian Lillard. In 2012, Sacramento held the 5th pick and went with Thomas Robinson, a power forward from Kansas. The very next pick, Portland grabbed Damian Lillard, who went on to become one of the league's most dynamic guards. At the time, the Kings saw Robinson as a strong, high-energy frontcourt piece, But his stay in Sacramento was short. He averaged under 5 points per game and was traded to Houston before his rookie season even ended. Lillard, meanwhile, immediately made noise as Rookie of the Year and grew into a perennial All-Star, multiple All-NBA selection, and Portland's all-time leading scorer. The gap between the two careers couldn't be wider, and that contrast turned this decision into one of the most criticized in Kings history. Analysts have pointed out that the issue wasn't just missing on Lillard, it was how little value the Kings got from their pick. That missed opportunity stung even more as Lillard consistently delivered clutch performances and leadership, exactly what Sacramento had been lacking. Fans haven't let it go either. The choice is still a talking point over a decade later, often brought up as a symbol of the franchise's struggles with talent evaluation. Popeye's response. Glenn Big Baby Davis kicked off one of the most bizarre off-court scandals on February 7th, 2018, when police rolled up to a Hampton Inn in Aberdeen, Maryland. Hotel staff had called them after smelling marijuana seeping from Davis's room. At first, he didn't open the door, but eventually led officers in. Inside, they found 126 grams of marijuana packaging materials, a ledger that screamed business, and a briefcase holding about $92,000 in cash. Not exactly travel-sized. The legal hammer came down hard. Davis got slapped with 7 counts of drug possession and distribution. That's not your average misunderstanding at a hotel. But the internet nearly imploded when Davis decided to respond. Not through an interview, not with a lawyer, but by filming himself on a private jet, Popeye's chicken in hand, casually showing off a briefcase full of money. He looked directly at the camera and said, "Don't believe all that you see on the internet." The vibe? Somewhere between music video and confused denial. Fast forward 1 year to February 2019. And Davis avoided court altogether. He paid a $15,000 fine, and prosecutors dropped the charges by moving the case to a stet docket. That means the whole thing got suspended with no trial, no mugshot tour, no courtroom drama, just a lot of Popeyes, cash, and questions. The whole thing felt like a weird, alternate timeline, where chicken, jets, and felony charges all somehow co-star. Broomstick brawl. During the early 2000s, the Portland Trail Blazers weren't exactly known for harmony. They earned the nickname Jail Blazers thanks to a steady stream of off-court issues. And this next incident, it fit right in. At a practice session, 2 massive bench warmers, Ha-Seung Jin from South Korea and Nedzad Sinanovic from Bosnia, got into a fight that looked more like a bad martial arts scene than an NBA workout. Neither of them had much playing time, but that didn't stop them from making headlines for all the wrong reasons. What kicked off as a typical scuffle quickly turned ridiculous when Ha grabbed a wooden dowel, basically a broomstick, and used it to go after Sinanovic. The thing actually broke during the chaos. That's right, dude picked up a stick like it was recess and tried to settle practice the medieval way. The absurdity of it all just added fuel to what was already a raging fire of dysfunction inside that locker room. The fight wasn't just random. It symbolized exactly what critics had been screaming for years. The team was talented, but completely off the rail. Management had been stacking the roster with players who had skills, but no filter, no control, and apparently no problem grabbing makeshift weapons. The broomstick moment stood out because it wasn't just violent, it was weird. Weird enough to perfectly sum up what made that era unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. It was one of those stories that spread not because it was dramatic, but because it was embarrassing. Like a soap opera with sneakers and shot clocks, the Jail Blazers kept finding ways to keep their name in the news. Boogie's Brawl. DeMarcus Cousins found himself in the middle of a complete meltdown on June 9, 2025, during a road game between the Mets de Guaynabo and the Vaqueros de Bayamon. The moment that blew everything up, courtside cameras caught him making an obscene gesture toward a heckling fan, and it got worse. He actually reached over and grabbed the fan's arm, which sent everyone into overdrive. Teammates and staff had to rush in to separate him before things spiraled even further. As he was getting escorted off the court, it turned into chaos. Fans started chucking liquids, and who knows what else at him. Security had to physically hold him back to stop things from going completely off the rails. The league didn't wait around. They hit Cousins with a suspension for the rest of the season, and his contract with the Mets was straight up terminated. Money-wise, it was a pretty hefty slap too. He was fined $4,250 for a disqualifying foul, a technical foul, and the behavior during the incident. But that might not be the end of it. There's still a possible additional fine of $5,750 hanging over him, which could push the total to $10,000. The Mets de Guaynabo came out with a statement trashing all forms of violence and provocation. They said they're standing for respect and safety. Meanwhile, fans from Bayamon who crossed the line with insults or started throwing things, banned for the rest of the season. The Vaqueros are now required to tighten up their security game big time. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Chowdan Sports controversy. Chowdan Sports launched around 2000 and quickly stirred up global heat by leaning hard into Michael Jordan's legacy without ever getting the green light. They scooped up trademarks for Chowdan and its Chinese characters, plus slapped a silhouette of a basketball player on products, all without Jordan's permission. While Nike and Jordan sat out the branding party, Chowdan was out here pushing shoes and sportswear as if they got a thumbs up from Chicago's finest. By 2010, the company was everywhere in China, over 30 franchises and between 4,000 to 5,000 specialty stores. Their revenue ballooned from $45.6 million in 2007 to over $456 million just 3 years later. They were doing deals with China Central Television and even had their logo courtside during NBA broadcasts in China. It was loud. In 2012, Jordan finally had enough. He filed a lawsuit to challenge their use of his name, jersey number, and even his son's names. That sparked a legal storm with over 80 lawsuits and countersuits across Chinese courts. The legal maze dragged on for years. By 2020, the Supreme People's Court of China stepped in. They ruled Jordan had name rights to the Chinese characters, but not to the pinyin spelling or the silhouette. Chowdan Sports had to stop using Chowdan, and 74 trademarks were revoked, but the logo and pinyin name survived. Eventually, Chowdan rebranded as Zhongqiao Sports Company, and by 2023, they were filing for an IPO on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. So they're still around, just with a slightly less controversial nameplate and a whole lot more court time behind them. Kerr's tweet slip-up. On February 1st, 2018, Steve Kerr lit up the timeline with one accidental move. While watching a game between the Rockets and Spurs, he saw James Harden hit a step-back three that looked more like a hop, skip, and maybe a travel. The NBA posted the highlight, and Kerr dropped a quote that made headlines instantly. He tweeted, "It's an embarrassment. I think the league is so happy with all the scoring that it doesn't want to enforce stuff like that." Strong words, especially coming from a head coach. But here's where it turned into a full-on digital faceplant. Kerr deleted the tweet in under 30 seconds. Turns out he thought he was sending a direct message to a friend, not throwing shade in front of millions. The culprit? A brand, new iPhone, and apparently a coach not quite trained in the dark arts of modern messaging. He had assistant coach Chris DeMarco handle the cleanup, and the tweet was gone almost as fast as it went up. The league took a look and decided not to fine Kerr. They believed the story. It was meant to be private, it got deleted quickly, and honestly, it didn't look like a stunt for attention. Still, for a guy known for being measured and media savvy, it was a rare public slip. That one comment, even though it was up for half a minute, pulled back the curtain on how some coaches really feel about what gets called and what doesn't. No fine, no suspension, just a quick moment where a coach learned the difference between a DM and a disaster, one iPhone tap at a time. Love under fire. On January 20th, 2018, the Cavaliers were absolutely torched by the Thunder in a 148-124 loss. Early in that disaster, Kevin Love dipped out. He played just 3 minutes before heading to the locker room, citing migraine symptoms. Not only did he leave the game, but he also missed the next team practice. That's when things boiled over. The following Monday, the Cavaliers called an emotional team meeting. And by emotional, we mean players straight up accused Love of faking the illness to avoid taking part in the embarrassing loss. Reports called the meeting loud and intense, and tensions were off the charts. Isaiah Thomas was one of the loudest voices in the room, allegedly leading the charge with questions about whether Love just bailed on the team. Love didn't stay silent. He stood up, addressed the team, and defended himself in front of players, coaches, and management. Some in the room may have accepted his explanation, but it didn't exactly bring peace and harmony to the locker room. The fractures remained. Head coach Tyronn Lue wasn't thrilled. He called the whole thing crazy and stood by Love, saying he couldn't believe teammates were questioning whether he was really sick. Still, the damage was done. The team stayed divided, and Love became a focal point of that tension. Whatever was said in that room didn't magically fix the deeper issues. It was just one more chapter in a season that was unraveling fast, and Love ended up right in the middle of it, whether he wanted to be or not. Silna Brothers TV heist. Back in 1976, the NBA and ABA finalized their big merger, but not everyone got a golden ticket. The Spirits of St. Louis, owned by Ozzie and Daniel Silna, were left out. No NBA invite, no games, no players absorbed. But that's where things took a wild turn. The Silnas struck a deal that became legendary. They agreed to shut down their team for just $2.2 million, but added a kicker: 1/7 of all television revenue earned by the 4 ABA teams that did join the NBA. and that share was locked in forever. The cut was divided up 45% to each brother and 10% to their attorney. At first, it didn't look like a jackpot. They earned around $521,000 in the 1980 season. But when the NBA exploded in popularity, so did the money. By the late 90s, their annual earnings hit over $12 million. In the early 2000s, that number jumped to past $15 million a year. By 2010, they were banking $17 million annually without owning a team or spending a dime on players. The league tried to buy them out. In 1982, they rejected $5 million over 8 years. Another offer of $18 million went nowhere. Finally, in 2014, the NBA waved the white flag and handed the Silnas a $500 million lump sum to end the agreement. By then, the brothers had earned over $300 million just from that deal. They never coached, drafted, or signed a single NBA player, but their contract became one of the most outrageous and profitable moves in league history. It was the ultimate passive income power play. Ceballos goes missing. In the 1995-96 NBA season, just 8 games in, Cedric Ceballos decided it was the perfect time to disappear. The Lakers were gearing up for a trip to Seattle, and Cedric, he was gearing up for Lake Havasu. Without telling anyone, no coach, no teammate, not even a ball boy, he missed the team flight and went totally AWOL. Right after buying 2 jet skis, he took off with his family for a sunny lake outing. Several days passed, no calls, no updates, nothing. The Lakers were left to wonder if he joined a pirate crew or started a new life on the water. Eventually, the front office had enough and suspended him indefinitely without pay. They weren't playing games. When Ceballos finally reappeared, he gave an explanation that somehow made things worse. He blamed a mechanical failure with one of the jet skis. That's right, he couldn't return to work because his new toy broke down in the middle of a lake. The reaction? Brutal. Fans and media roasted him. One, Take flat out, called his decision irresponsible. You can't just vanish mid-season when you're supposed to be a starter on a contending team. This wasn't a sick day. It wasn't even a mental health break. It was a rogue jet ski adventure. While he did come back to the team, the trust was already cracked. The incident stained his season and made it clear that management wasn't thrilled. A few months later, he was traded. Turns out, disappearing without warning during a playoff push isn't a great long-term career move, even if the Lake Day was fun. Arenas gambling ring. On July 30th, 2025, Gilbert Arenas was arrested by the U.S. Department of Justice for running an illegal gambling ring straight out of his California mansion. He was hit with 3 felony charges: conspiracy, operating an illegal gambling business, and lying to federal investigators. He pleaded not guilty and was released on a $50,000 bond. The trial scheduled for September 23rd. According to the indictment, Arenas used his Encino mansion between September 2021 and July 2022 to host high-stakes underground poker games. The go-to game? Pot Limit Omaha. He didn't run it solo, though. His associate, Arthur Katz, handled most of the logistics and property setup. The whole operation was flashy. Think chefs, valets, armed guards, and women hired to serve drinks, give massages, and entertain players. Those women were reportedly forced to pay a tax on their tips, which is as shady as it sounds. Another guy, Yevgen Krachin, was accused of working as a chip runner, making sure bets and chip distributions were smooth. It wasn't just Arenas and Katz. At least 5 others were arrested, including Yevgeny Gershman, who's allegedly connected to Israeli organized crime. Names like Alan Austria, Yaron Cohen, and Evgeny Terevsky also popped up in the indictment. If convicted, Arenas could face up to 5 years in federal prison for each of the 3 charges. The sentences might run concurrently, but that still adds up fast. From a retired NBA star to standing in federal court, this whole thing reads like a casino-themed movie gone off the rails. The chips were real, the security was armed, and now the stakes are as high as they get. Noel vs. Rich Paul. In August 2021, Nerlens Noel filed a lawsuit against agent Rich Paul and Clutch Sports, claiming he lost $58 million in potential earnings due to what he called bad representation. The core of the issue goes back to July 2017. Noel, then a restricted free agent, got a $70 million offer from the Mavericks over 4 years. According to the lawsuit, Rich Paul told him to reject it, pushing him to sign a 1-year qualifying offer worth $4.1 million instead. The pitch? Play the season out, then land a max deal. That plan blew up fast. Noel got a thumb injury during the 2017-18 season, missed 42 games, and never regained the production he had before. Between 2017 and 2020, he earned just around $12 million total. way below what that Dallas offer would have given him. He also claimed Clutch ignored calls from interested teams and didn't promote him properly. Noel's lawsuit accused Paul of breach of fiduciary duty, breach of contract, and negligence. He wanted both actual and punitive damages, but in September 2022, a federal judge threw it out, saying disputes under the standard player-agent contract had to go through NBPA arbitration, not the courts. In early 2023, the drama finally ended. Noel agreed to pay the disputed commission tied to his Knicks contract and dropped all legal claims. The case was settled just like that. It became a headline moment showing how a single contract decision and one piece of advice can change everything for a player, financially and professionally. Griffin's locker room moment. Right after getting drafted at 19, Blake Griffin got hit with one of the strangest welcome to the league moments imaginable. It didn't come from a teammate, a rival, or even a coach. It came from Clippers owner Donald Sterling. After a game, Sterling waltzed into the locker room with a crowd of guests in tow. He didn't just shake hands or offer congratulations. No, he lifted Griffin's arm like he was showing off a prized possession and then led the group in some weird cheer session. It didn't stop there. According to Griffin, Sterling encouraged his guests to walk over and touch his muscles. Yes, actual strangers were apparently invited to poke and prod a towel-wrapped rookie like he was a trophy on display. Griffin later said it felt like being around a weird uncle, which might be the gentlest way to describe what was a totally inappropriate display of ownership ego. This wasn't a one-off either. Griffin shared more stories later, including a bizarre white party hosted at Sterling's Malibu estate. There, the owner reportedly paraded him around, holding his hand and introducing him to guests like he was the entertainment. The whole vibe? Possessive, performative, and way out of line. What makes this all worse is that it happened in Griffin's earliest days, when players should be building confidence, not being objectified. The locker room incident was more than just awkward. It showed how Sterling saw his players, not as professionals, but as props. And for a rising star like Griffin, it was a preview of the unsettling power dynamics that would hang over the Clippers during Sterling's reign. Pollard's mic'd up misfire. On March 11th, 2007, during a timeout in a Cavaliers game against the Pacers, Scott Pollard took his 15 seconds of camera time and absolutely tanked it. Sitting on the bench, staring straight into the camera, he said, "Hey kids, do drugs." That was it. No setup, no key and text, just pure, reckless nonsense, broadcast live to millions. The Cavaliers scrambled to clean it up. General Manager Danny Ferry made it clear the team didn't condone the comment, and they had a conversation with Pollard right after. Pollard tried to brush it off as a bad joke, saying he didn't actually promote drug use, but the damage was already done. It became one of those weird NBA moments people still shake their heads about. Despite the chaos, there's no solid record of the NBA or the team fining him. No press release, no formal punishment. Nothing listed in league action reports. For a comment that instantly made headlines, the follow-up was surprisingly quiet. Either Pollard got a stern talk and a warning, or they just hoped the whole thing would blow over fast, and it kind of did. No suspension, no public fine, just a bad look that stuck to him more than any actual penalty. It wasn't a scandal with layers. It was just one bizarre sentence caught on a live mic that turned into an infamous clip, and somehow it didn't ruin his career, but it definitely cemented his place in the hall of awkward NBA soundbites forever. Iggy's Memphis standoff. In July 2019, Iggy was traded from the Warriors to the Grizzlies in a move that was all about the salary cap. But unlike most trades, this one came with an asterisk. He never reported to the team. That wasn't just Iggy bailing on Memphis. It was a mutual decision. Both sides agreed he'd stay away while they worked on a trade. No training camp, no practices, no jersey fitting. Just an understanding that he wouldn't suit up for them. Reports made it sound like Iggy refused to play, but that wasn't exactly true. He later explained that he never said he wouldn't play for the Grizzlies. From the start, he was told through agents and team reps that a trade or buyout was likely. So he waited. The Grizzlies weren't interested in a buyout, though. They saw value and wanted to move him for assets, not just cut him loose. That led to months of silence, technically on the roster, never on the floor. Finally, on February 6th, 2020, he was traded to the Miami Heat in a 3-team deal. The Grizzlies got their assets. Iggy got a contender, and the whole saga ended with him never playing a single second for Memphis. No rebellion, no holdout, just a strange chapter shaped by business decisions and back-channel negotiations. It wasn't drama-filled. It was calculated, agreed upon, and dragged out behind closed doors. But it still stands as one of the weirdest non-playing stints in recent league history. Kemp's wild start. Shawn Kemp came out of Concord High School in Indiana as a full-blown phenom. He was a McDonald's All-American in 1988, broke scoring records left and right, and took his team to the state title game. The hype was real, and so was the plan. He signed with the University of Kentucky, ready to become their next big thing. But the wheels fell off before he even laced up. Kemp couldn't crack the NCAA's required 700 SAT score under Proposition 48. He tried more than once but didn't make it, which meant he couldn't play for Kentucky his freshman year. That alone was rough, but then came the jewelry incident. In early November, Kemp pawned 2 gold necklaces that had been reported stolen. The catch? They belonged to Sean Sutton, son of head coach Eddie Sutton. No charges were filed, and Kemp denied stealing them, but admitted pawning them was a bad move. The media storm didn't help, and by the end of that month, he left the program entirely. After that, he enrolled at Trinity Valley Community College in Texas. But even there, he never touched the court. One semester, no games, no points, just passing through. Then in 1989, he made the leap, straight into the NBA draft. The Seattle Supersonics took him 17th overall, and that's where everything flipped. Kemp became a 6-time All-Star and one of the most electric dunkers the league had ever seen. But before the fame and high-flying highlights, his path was a total mess. Academic ineligibility, scandal, media pressure, it looked like it could all collapse. Instead, it became the prelude to one of the wildest rises in NBA history, Dumas' Vanishing Act. Richard Dumas had the skills, the bounce, and the perfect setup. Drafted 46th overall by the Suns in 1991, he never even got to suit up that season. Before playing a single game, the NBA suspended him for violating the league's substance abuse policy. Just like that, his rookie year was wiped out. No games, no stats, just a roster spot that never saw the floor. Then came the comeback. In the 1992-93 season, Dumas returned 19 games into the year and made an instant impact. He averaged 15.8 points and 4.6 rebounds per game and made the all-rookie second team. The Suns were rolling that year, racking up 62 wins and charging all the way to the finals. Dumas was a key part of that success, playing like a guy who'd been there all along. But consistency was never the storyline. In October 1994, Dumas failed another drug test and got suspended again. This time, he didn't return until March 1995. Even then, he played only 15 games and averaged 5.5 points. His shot at long-term success was slipping fast. That slip turned into a fall. After breaking league substance policies again, this time including alcohol use violations, the NBA handed him a permanent ban. He was out. No comeback, no redemption arc. From explosive finals contributor to league exile, Dumas' journey became one of the biggest what-ifs of the era. The talent was never the problem. It was everything that happened off the court that made this story end early. Knicks-Wizards Christmas clash. On December 25th, 2014, the NBA's Holiday Spotlight game at Madison Square Garden turned into a showdown, and not just on the scoreboard. With 5 minutes and 31 seconds left and the Wizards comfortably ahead, Knicks forward Quincy Acey delivered a hard forearm shove to John Wall, who was dribbling up court. That shove lit the fuse. Wall shoved back. Acey, not backing down, appeared to swing at Wall, prompting a full-on flare-up that had players separating the two before it boiled over. The referees quickly reviewed the chaos. Acey was ejected on a flagrant 2 foul, and Wall picked up a technical. But the drama didn't end there. The league responded with penalties. Acey was suspended for 1 game without pay for initiating the scuffle. Wall was fined $15,000 for escalating the situation. No punches were officially ruled, but it was about as heated as a holiday game gets. Meanwhile, the Knicks were spiraling. That game marked their 6th straight loss and the 16th in 17 games. The team was already buried in dysfunction, and this altercation only spotlighted the frustration bubbling over. The Wizards, on the other hand, kept their focus. They walked out with a 102-91 win. And 2 of their stars, Wall and Bradley Beal, delivered strong performances that were almost completely overshadowed by the fight. Instead of the usual flashy dunks and festive highlight reels, fans got a Christmas Day brawl. No Christmas miracle for the Knicks. Just another L, another headline, and another low point in a brutal season. Curry's DNA controversy. In the 2004 to 2005 season, Eddie Curry's career hit a major detour. After developing an irregular heartbeat, he was sidelined for the final 13 games and the playoff. Even though multiple cardiologists cleared him to return, the Bulls weren't convinced. They wanted more than just medical opinions. They wanted genetic proof. Specifically, the team asked Curry to take a DNA test to check for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a condition linked to sudden cardiac death in athletes. To make the request more palatable, they offered an incentive, $400,000 a year for 50 years, $20 million total, if the test came back positive. Curry declined. he wasn't just thinking about himself. He and his agent believed that giving in could open the door for teams to pressure other players, especially black athletes, into surrendering private medical data just to keep their careers alive. The money didn't change his mind. He stood firm on privacy. With the standoff unresolved, the Bulls made their move. On October 3rd, 2005, they traded Curry to the New York Knicks. That ended the impasse and kicked off a whole new chapter in his career. It wasn't about contracts or court time. It was about DNA, autonomy, and a precedent the league had never seen before. What started as a health scare turned into a debate about medical ethics in pro sports. Curry wasn't just playing for minutes. He was pushing back against how far a franchise could go in the name of protecting an investment. Kirilenko's vanishing act. After a short run in Russia, Andrei Kirilenko made his NBA return in the 2012-13 season with the Timberwolves, playing 64 games and showing flashes of his old self. In July 2013, he signed a 2-year deal with the Brooklyn Nets and exercised his player option for $3.3 million heading into the 2014-15 season. But things got weird fast. By November, Kirilenko had taken a leave of absence from the Nets. Then on December 11th, the Nets traded him to the Philadelphia 76ers in a salary dump. Philadelphia wasn't interested in his production. They wanted his contract. Kirilenko, on the other hand, wanted no part of the Sixers. He never reported. On January 9th, 2015, Philadelphia suspended him without pay for failing to show up. Reports floated around that there was a quiet agreement he'd be waived, but the Sixers denied any deal like that. Kirilenko said his wife's pregnancy and family matters were behind the decision, and his camp pushed for a buyout. Philadelphia held the line, insisting he report and get in shape. It never happened. On February 21st, the Sixers finally waived him. 3 days later, Kirilenko signed with CSKA Moscow and closed the NBA chapter for good. From a former All-Star and Olympian to a suspended player avoiding a rebuild, Kirilenko's exit from the league wasn't loud. It was awkward. No games played for Philadelphia. No final send-off, just a quiet return to Russia after a standoff no one seemed all that eager to resolve. Ryder's Oakland arrest. In June 1996, Isaiah Ryder, then with the Minnesota Timberwolves, was arrested in Oakland after a traffic stop by California Highway Patrol officers. What they found inside his vehicle turned a routine stop into another headline in Ryder's growing off-court rap sheet. First, there was marijuana in the car, enough to land him a misdemeanor possession charge. But the second item was a little more unusual, an illegal cellular phone. Not illegal like banned model, but illegal as in tampered with. The phone's serial number had been removed or altered, making it a suspected cloned device. These types of phones could reroute calls to someone else's account or even piggyback off legit billing lines, a form of telecom fraud. After the arrest, Ryder was convicted of misdemeanor marijuana possession. As for the phone, he pleaded no contest to the charge of possessing an illegal or cloned communication device. No felony charges, no jail time, but another dent in a career already under scrutiny. For Ryder, this wasn't a one-off incident. It was one more addition to a growing list of off-court missteps that often overshadowed his talent. Between the weed and the clone tech, the whole thing played out like a strange side plot in a 90s crime show and made sure his name stayed in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Haywood versus the NBA. In 1969, Spencer Haywood went pro after just 2 college seasons, signing with the ABA's Denver Rockets under a hardship exemption. He lit the league up, leading in scoring and rebounding, and walked away with Rookie of the Year and MVP honors. But he wasn't done breaking the rules. In 1970, the Seattle Supersonics threw him a 6-year, $1.5 million contract. Even though the NBA had a strict 4-year rule, players had to wait 4 years after high school to enter the league. The NBA pushed back hard, threatening both Haywood and the team. So Haywood and Sonics owner Sam Schulman sued, filing an antitrust case under the Sherman Act. The court sided with Haywood. A district court granted an injunction letting him play, and the U.S. Supreme Court upheld it in March 1971. The NBA blinked. They settled, and Haywood stayed in Seattle. That decision cracked the door open for early entries and changed NBA draft rules forever. But the chaos didn't stop there. Just months later, the Buffalo Braves tried to swoop in. During the 1971 draft, they used their second-round pick, 30th overall, to draft Haywood, even though he was already under contract with the Sonics. The move was pure opportunism. The league and courts weren't impressed. Seattle's claim held up, and Buffalo's pick went nowhere. The impact? Massive. Haywood's case led the NBA to formally adopt a hardship rule and open the door for future players like Kevin Garnett and LeBron James to enter early. And Haywood himself, he went on to a Hall of Fame career, not just for the points he scored, but for the fight he took all the way to the highest court, child's conditioning suspension. On October 22, 2002, the New Jersey Nets dropped the hammer on veteran point guard Chris Childs, suspending him indefinitely for showing up to training camp badly out of shape. Reports at the time said he was carrying 25 to 30 extra pounds above his target, playing weight of around 205 to 210 pounds. This wasn't just about a few missed workouts. Childs had also been dealing with an Achilles tendon injury that limited his ability to practice, but the weight gain pushed the team past its patience. The Nets made it clear: no court time, no practice, and no roster spot until he got his body back in game condition. He spent months away from the team, training to get back in form. By January 2003, he was finally activated after losing the weight, but the comeback was short-lived. He appeared in just 12 games for the Nets, never regaining a real role in the rotation. By late February, the team waived him. That was it. No farewell tour, no bounce-back moment, just a quiet release that marked the end of his NBA career. From trusted floor general to suspended veteran, Childs' last NBA chapter didn't end with a buzzer beater or a playoff run. It ended with a scale, a suspension, and a slow fade out of the league. Level 1. Poverty. Let's start with Charlotte. This team has been around long enough to build something, and yet they've done the exact opposite. Their all-time regular season record is around 1,194 wins and 1,602 losses, which lands them a winning percentage under 43%. That's almost impressively bad. They've made the playoffs 10 times and have never reached the conference final. 0 championships, 0 finals. It's like they're allergic to May basketball. Their overall playoff win-loss record sits at 23-40. They've had some names come through. Kemba Walker poured in over 12,000 points and carried some of the most forgettable rosters in the league. Muggsy Bogues is a franchise icon and still leads them in assists, steals, and minutes played. Glenn Rice, Larry Johnson, Emeka Okafor, and LaMelo Ball all had moments, and 3 of those guys won Rookie of the Year. But none of that ever added up to winning anything meaningful. They've had stretches of promise, but they never last long. Even their best teams were a few games over 500 and bowed out quickly. Charlotte's story has been 25 plus years of hitting the reset button and hoping the next version finally works. So far, no luck. Minnesota is next. The Timberwolves have been around since the late 80s, and their record is even worse. About 1,197 wins and 1,681 losses, good for a winning percentage of about 41%. They've only made the playoffs 13 times in 35 seasons, and one of those runs reached the conference final. That was in the early 2000s, and they haven't come close since. They had Kevin Garnett, who gave them 19,201 points, over 10,000 rebounds, and won an MVP award. He did everything except get consistent help. Minnesota couldn't build around him, and his best seasons went to waste. Later, they tried again with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. Towns won Rookie of the Year, Wiggins won it too. Still nothing. A couple of short playoff appearances, then back to the bottom. It's like they can't get out of their own way. One good player shows up, the team gets hyped, and then reality kicks in. The defense doesn't hold up, the offense dries out, and the franchise stays stuck. Until Anthony Edwards drags them to a championship, they fit in this tier. Now it's Memphis. This franchise includes their time in Vancouver, which was rough, and their time in Memphis, which has been better but still not enough. Over 31 seasons, their all-time record sits around 1,047 wins and 1,348 losses. That's a winning percentage of roughly 43%. They've reached the playoffs 14 times and have never made the NBA final. The grit and grind era was their peak. That stretch with Mike Conley, Mark Gasol, and Zach Randolph gave the team some real identity. Conley scored over 11,000 points. Gasol added nearly the same, and Randolph wasn't far behind. Their defense was a problem for a lot of teams, and they were actually tough to beat. But again, it didn't lead to a title. They were good, not great, solid, not special. They made the playoffs regularly for a while, but never pushed far enough to break through. Good teams beat them. Great teams ignored them. It's a classic case of solid rosters never turning into a real threat. They had grit, but not the ceiling. And then we've got New Orleans. This franchise has only been around for about 23 seasons, but it already feels like a full rerun. Their record is about 852 wins and 998 losses. That's a winning percentage, hovering near 46%. Not quite rock bottom, but not far above it either. They've only made the playoffs 9 times and have never reached the conference final. That puts them in the same category as Charlotte. Anthony Davis gave them 11,000 points, and Chris Paul added nearly 8,000. They had elite talent. They still lost. Even David West gave them solid years. And now with Zion Williamson, and it's the same routine. A few good games, a few highlights, then disappointment. This team finds new ways to fall short. Whether it's injuries, bad trades, or just plain inconsistency, they've never turned potential into playoff results. It's all flash, no finish. Looking across all 4 teams, the pattern is obvious. 0 championships between them. That's not even the surprising part. Their combined lack of progress is what's so wild. None of them can consistently make the playoffs, let alone win in them. Charlotte's under 43% win rate over 3 decades is brutal. Minnesota's 41% is even worse. Memphis has been around longer than people realize and still hasn't hit a championship level. New Orleans has the best win percentage in this group, and it's still below 500. Each of these teams has had talented players. Garnett, Davis, Walker, Randolph, Paul, none of them played on a title-level roster. Some didn't even get out of the first round regularly. That's the core of this level. It's not just about rings, it's about decades of missed chances, bad management, and no momentum. You can get stars, you can sell jerseys, but these teams haven't figured out how to build winners. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, level 2. Mediocre. Let's start with the Los Angeles Clippers. This franchise dates back to the Buffalo Braves days, and somehow, all these decades later, they've still never reached the NBA Finals. Their all-time record is roughly 1,894 wins and 2,550 losses, which lands them with a winning percentage just under 43%. They made the playoffs 19 times, and for a while, it seemed like they were turning a corner. The Lob City era gave them back-to-back 50-win seasons with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan. The highlights were fun, but the results were the same. Early playoff exits. Even recent super teams haven't gotten them over the hump. They're a classic example of a team that looks like a contender, but never proves it. Now we've got the Sacramento Kings. Their all-time record sits at about 2,788 wins and 3,299 losses for a winning percentage under 46%. That tells a lot of the story already. They had a dominant squad in the early 2000s, including a 61-win season, but they never reached the finals. And since then, things have mostly gone downhill. From 2006 to 2022, they missed the playoffs 16 straight times. That stretch defines the modern Kings. Sure, Oscar Robertson is the franchise's all-time leading scorer, but most of that came way before they landed in Sacramento. Since arriving, their success has been scattered and short-lived. Brooklyn fits here perfectly. They started in the ABA and actually won 2 titles before joining the NBA. But in the NBA, it's been rough. Their NBA record is about 1,680 wins and 2,270 losses. That's around a 42% win rate. They had a strong early 2000s run as the New Jersey Nets, reaching the finals in 2 straight years. Jason Kidd led those teams, but they didn't win it all. More recently, they loaded up with stars like Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and James Harden, and still couldn't make it past the second round. Whether it's injuries or bad luck, the results just don't match the rosters. They swing for the fences, but the ball never quite leaves the park. Washington has more history than most of these teams. Originally founded in the 60s, they've played under several names and in several cities. Their all-time record is around 2,291 wins and 2,880 losses, with a winning percentage just under 44%. They do have a championship from the 1978 season, which technically lifts them above the others with none. But that was a long time ago, and since then, they've mostly drifted between average and disappointing. They've had good players, Elvin Hayes, Wes Unseld, Gilbert Arenas, John Wall, but rarely the roster or consistency to go deep. That one title gives them historical weight, but not enough to carry them any higher. Orlando is younger than the rest. They were founded in 1989 and hit the ground running. Shaq and Penny led them to the finals in the 90s. Then, Dwight Howard did it again in 2009. 2 trips to the finals and no titles. Their overall record is about 1,357 wins and 1,530 losses, with a winning rate around 47%. Not awful. They've made the playoffs 18 times, and they've had some real talent, but it never lasts. Big stars leave, and the rebuild starts again. They show up, make a little noise, then disappear. That's the pattern. Last is Utah, easily the best of this tier. They've been one of the league's most stable teams since the 80s. From about 1989 on, they won around 59% of their games, including long stretches of playoff consistency. Karl Malone and John Stockton carried them to the finals twice in the late 90s. They lost both times to Michael Jordan, which is fair, but they still haven't won a title. They've made the playoffs constantly, and they usually win more than they lose. Still, they never got over the top. That puts them right at the edge of mediocrity and greatness. Close enough to tease it, never close enough to grab it. These 6 teams share a frustrating legacy. They've had success, they've had talent, but none have turned that into sustained greatness. Some made the finals. One won it all. Most have lived in the middle, good enough to compete, but never enough to finish. That's the definition of level 2. Level 3, respectable. Let's start with Denver. The Nuggets have been around since the old ABA days, and after decades of good, not great basketball, they finally broke through with a championship in 2023. Their all-time regular season record is about 2,417 wins and 2,279 losses, just above 51%. That's a solid sign of long-term competence. They've had multiple strong playoff runs in recent years and became true contenders behind Nikola Jokic. He's brought the team to new heights, collecting MVP awards and leading a deep roster. For most of their existence, they were a team that could win 50 games, maybe win a round or two, but that was it. That recent title elevated them. Still, one championship doesn't move them into elite territory. They're finally a team with proven success, but it's still fresh. Right now, they live comfortably in the respectable tier. Now, the Atlanta Hawks. This franchise has been around forever, tracing all the way back to the 40s. They won their only title in 1958 as the St. Louis Hawks. Since moving to Atlanta, they've had some really solid years but haven't made it back to the top. Their history includes stretches of consistency, especially in the 80s and late 2000s. Wilkins was their franchise icon during the high-flying days of the 80s. They've made the playoffs plenty, including recent runs led by Trae Young. Still, that one title over 60 years ago keeps them grounded. Their all-time track record shows a franchise that's competitive often, but not dominant. They've been capable of 50-win seasons and playoff drama, but they've never turned into a team that others fear year in and year out. That keeps them stuck in the middle ground. Not mediocre, not elite, but definitely respectable. Now let's go north to Toronto. The Raptors joined the league in the mid-90s and became Canada's team. Their first years were rough, but Vince Carter helped change that, bringing flash and relevance. Then came the peak, a title run in 2019. That alone lifts them above a lot of franchises. Their all-time record is around 1,127 wins and 1,267 losses, which is just under 47%. So yes, they've had some losing seasons, especially early on, but since the late 2000s, they've been a steady playoff team. DeMar and Kyle Lowry helped establish a winning culture. Kawhi Leonard took them to the finish line. That championship was real, not a fluke, and they beat elite teams to get there. But with only one finals run and inconsistent success before that, they haven't yet built a long-term resume of greatness. They've had some really high moments and enough consistent seasons to deserve this tier. Let's talk Indiana next. The Pacers have been around since the ABA days and were legit back then, winning 3 ABA championships in the 70s. In the NBA though, they've never won the title. Still, they've made the playoffs in more than half of their NBA seasons. Their all-time record sits around 2,407 wins and 2,288 losses, just above 51%. That tells the story well. They've usually been solid. They had strong teams built around Reggie Miller and made the finals in 2000. Falling to the Lakers. They were consistent contenders in the early 2000s, and again in the Paul George era. They also made the finals last year with Halliburton. The team always seems to hang around. They're rarely bottom feeders, and they usually field a team that can push others in the playoffs. But no ring and only 2 finals appearances keeps them from being in the top tier. Still, with their consistent presence and playoff runs, they're clearly above average. Now on to Phoenix. The Suns have never won a championship, but they've had multiple chances. Their all-time record is around 2,466 wins and 2,143 losses, which is around 53%. That puts them near the top of this tier. They've reached the finals 3 times, in 1976, 1993, and 2021. Charles Barkley, Steve Nash, and now Devin Booker have all helped lead finals-level teams. They've had years with 60 wins and MVP performances. Even when they've struggled, they've bounced back quickly. The franchise has never tanked for long stretches, and they always seem to find talent. The missing ring holds them back from elite status, but everything else fits a well-run franchise that wins a lot and makes deep playoff runs. All 5 of these franchises live in that reliable, competitive zone. Some have titles, others don't, but all of them have been around long enough and won enough to be respected. They've had legendary players, postseason moments, and strong regular seasons. They just haven't built dynasties. Level 4. Solid. The Dallas Mavericks might not have a history drenched in titles, but they've had a strong, steady climb since joining the league in 1980. With 1 championship under their belt in 2011, they've crossed that crucial threshold of greatness. Thanks to Dirk Nowitzki's long run and Mark Cuban's takeover in 2000, they became a legit contender through the 2000s and early 2010s. Their playoff appearances total around 25, and with a win percentage just above 50%, they've consistently hovered above mediocrity. The Luka ending was a mess, but with only 1 title and no long-term dominance across eras, they sit firmly in the solid zone. That title gives them weight, but not enough to push them into the dynasty conversation. Now Portland. The Trail Blazers have a deeper playoff history than most realize. They were founded in 1970 and grabbed their lone championship in 1977. What makes them stand out is their ridiculous playoff consistency, especially from the early 80s through the early 2000s, where they made the playoffs 21 years straight. That's rare air. Add in 3 conference titles, a win percentage above 50%, and you've got a franchise that's been more than just competitive. Still, 1 ring and only a few peak seasons keep them just outside the top. They've had all the pieces at different times, but never built something that stretched across multiple eras. So yep, definitely solid. Then there's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's not pretend their pre-2000 era was a parade of success. But when LeBron James hit his prime, everything changed. That 2016 title run is unforgettable, especially since they became the first team ever to come back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals. That alone punches their ticket out of the lower tiers. With about 25 playoff appearances and multiple finals runs in the last 2 decades, they've made their mark. Still, their all-time win percentage is under 500, and outside of the LeBron years, there's not much to hold up as historically great. So they sit right here too, above the many teams that never reached the mountaintop, but not quite built for all-time dominance. What links all 3? 1 championship each. Real playoff success. Franchise legends. Stretches of being legit contenders, but none have the multiple titles or long-term stranglehold on success to be considered among the league's absolute elite. They've climbed higher than the average team ever will, but not quite into the top floor. That's what makes them solid, dependable, proven, but not untouchable. They're the kind of franchises that other fan bases envy on good years and forget about on quiet ones. They've had their moments, and in some cases, legendary ones, but they haven't made a habit out of it. Level 5. Historic. The New York Knicks have been around longer than almost anything else in the NBA. They were founded way back in 1946, and somehow they're still playing basketball inside Madison Square Garden like it's a sacred tradition. Their win-loss record might be stuck under the 500 mark, but they've made the finals 8 times and won 2 titles in the 70s. Those championship years still carry weight, especially because of names like Willis Reed and Walt Frazier. The Reed comeback game in 1970 is one of the league's most replayed moments. And even though the team's recent decades haven't exactly been a victory parade, the franchise's cultural footprint and legacy make them impossible to ignore. Their home court is iconic, their fan base is loud, and their brand is part of the NBA's DNA. Then there's the Detroit Pistons, a franchise that somehow combines toughness and talent across multiple generations. They started in the 1930s as the Fort Wayne Zollner Pistons and rolled into the NBA from the old National Basketball League. They've racked up 3 championships, and each one tells a different story. In the late 80s, they turned the league on its head with the Bad Boys. Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, Dennis Rodman, and a defense that made you think twice about entering the paint. Fast forward to 2004, and they shocked the league again with a team that didn't have a single superstar, but crushed it anyway. That title squad, led by Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, and Ben Wallace, owned the defensive end and played like they had something to prove every night. Detroit's championship history stretches across different decades, making them more than just a one-hit wonder. Now look at the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that shot out of the expansion gate in the late 60s and won a title faster than just about anybody. By year 3, they already had a ring behind Kareem and Oscar Robertson. That was in 1971. Then they disappeared from the top of the mountain for about 50 years before Giannis dragged them all the way back in 2021. That kind of comeback makes a statement. Winning titles in completely different eras doesn't just say they've had talent, it says they've had real staying power. And with 19 division titles thrown in there, they've been relevant more often than not. The Bucks have bridged the gap from the league's old school days to the new era without losing their identity. That's a historic resume. Then comes the Houston Rockets, who managed to pull off back-to-back titles in the mid-90s when a lot of teams would have just folded. They had Hakeem at his peak, and he led them to those championships in 94 and 95. It wasn't just about the wins. It was how they dominated the paint, how they adjusted and beat everyone put in front of them. And it wasn't just one moment. This franchise had other strong eras too, like the early 2000s and the James Harden run that brought them deep into the playoffs multiple times. The Rockets have kept themselves in the conversation for decades. They're not here because of one hot stretch. They're here because they keep showing up with real threats, real players, and serious run. 2 championships and a pile of memorable seasons push them above a lot of others. The Philadelphia 76ers are even older than they sound. They started out as the Syracuse Nationals in the 40s, joined the NBA when it was still just figuring itself out, and eventually became the Sixers. Their 3 championships span from 1955 to 1967 with Wilt Chamberlain to 1983 with Moses Malone and Julius Erving. That kind of range is rare. They've made plenty of finals appearances and had no shortage of iconic names on the roster. Chamberlain's dominance, Dr. J's style, Allen Iverson's edge, they've all helped define what the Sixers are about. They've had down years too, no doubt, but when this franchise is good, they're not just good, they're influential. Their history hits every major era, and their fans don't forget a single part of it. From the early days to the process years. And into the present, they've held on to relevance better than most. And now, Oklahoma City Thunder, which is where things get a little more complicated. Technically, this franchise began in Seattle back in 1967 as the Supersonics. That team won a title in 1979. Then they moved to Oklahoma City in 2008 and completely reshaped the narrative. Even without counting the Sonics era, the Thunder managed to build a team that went to the finals in 2012, made deep playoff runs year after year, and then finally broke through in 2025. That championship officially moves them into the conversation. Players like Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden got them close. Now, it's Shea, Chet Holmgren, and a new core carrying the legacy forward. What makes them historic is that they aren't just building something, they're continuing something. Their roots go way back, their timeline stretches across cities and eras, and now they've got the hardware to back it all up. What ties these 6 teams together isn't just trophies, it's presence. The Knicks might have 2 titles, but they've got decades of cultural relevance. The Pistons won across multiple styles and identities, and their titles didn't all come from one player or one system. The Bucks made history early, then made history again half a century later. The Rockets built a mini dynasty and kept the pressure on through changing eras. The Sixers are practically a museum of basketball history with championships, legends, and eras that cover the league's full story. And the Thunder? They've got history, even if some of it happened under a different name. Now they've added a modern title to anchor it all. Each of these franchises stands out not just for what they've done, but for how often they've been part of the bigger story. They've all lifted trophies, hosted superstars, shaped eras, and built legacies that still matter. This tier isn't about being perfect every season. It's about impact across time. It's about titles that mattered, runs that lasted, and names that echo. These teams didn't just show up. They changed the conversation. Some did it early, some did it late, but all of them earned a spot in this level. Whether through grit, talent, or moments that stuck forever, these franchises carved out something real in NBA history. That's what makes them historic. Level 6. Legendary. The Golden State Warriors have rewritten the playbook, literally and figurative. Founded in 1946, they were around when the league was barely walking. And even though their all-time win percentage hovers under 50%, their title count definitely doesn't. 7 championships total. The early ones came when they were still in Philadelphia, winning in 1947 and 1956. But their legend status? That exploded in the 2010s. 4 titles in 8 seasons, with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson dropping threes like they were going out of style, and Draymond Green bulldozing through matchups while Steve Kerr pulled the strings. They weren't just winning, they were reshaping how basketball looked. Spacing, pace, and perimeter shooting took over the league, and everyone else had to catch up. That modern dynasty, 2 titles before Kevin Durant, 2 with him, secured their spot among the greatest. Multiple titles across completely different eras, a complete shift in the game's evolution, and decades of presence in the league give Golden State a home at the top. That's not just success, that's history making. Now the Chicago Bulls. They did not have to stretch their greatness across eras because they packed so much of it into one. That run in the 90s wasn't just dominant, it was cinematic. Founded in 1966, the Bulls were a middle-of-the-pack team until Michael Jordan showed up and decided basketball needed a new face. Add in Scottie Pippen, Coach Phil Jackson, and that roster stacked with contributors who knew their roles, and you get 6 titles in 8 years. 2 separate three-peats with a baseball break for Jordan in between made the Bulls one of the most recognizable dynasties in sports. The entire world was watching, not just because they were winning, but because their brand, image, and dominance reached way beyond basketball. And while they haven't returned to that level since, the impact they had on the sport is permanent. Global fan bases, massive cultural moments, and a perfect finals record during that dynasty. That's not just legendary, it's blueprint material. Miami Heat might be younger, but age clearly doesn't matter here. They joined the league in 1988 and were hoisting a trophy by 2006. That team, powered by D. Wade and coached by Pat Riley, clawed back from a slow start in the finals and never looked back. But it was their second act that took things up a level. In 2010, they put together the so-called Big Three: LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Wade again, and turned the league upside down. 4 straight finals appearances, 2 titles, and a roster that changed the way stars thought about teaming up. Miami didn't just build teams, they built movements. With 3 championships and consistent playoff appearances even outside of those peak years, they've remained a major force in the league. And their win percentage backs it up, sitting above 50%. This is a franchise that builds fast, adjusts faster, and stays relevant longer than most. 3 titles, major cultural impact, and playoff consistency in a short lifespan puts them in rare air. Then there's San Antonio, the model of long-term excellence. The Spurs started in the old American Basketball Association as the Dallas Chaparrals, moved to San Antonio, and joined the NBA through the merger in 1976. And since then, all they've done is win 5 championships, a run that spans from the late 90s through the early 2010s. But what makes them legendary is not just the titles, it's how methodically and sustainably they built it. The Tim Duncan, Manu, and Tony Parker trio, coached by Greg Popovich, was never flashy, never loud, but always dangerous. Their defense, unselfish ball movement, and team-first identity outlasted flashier teams. And the numbers match the eye test. 18 straight seasons with at least 50 wins, a win percentage hovering near 60%. That's ridiculous. The Spurs didn't just have a run, they had a system that worked for 2 decades. They evolved, adapted, and never fell off until the core retired. No gimmicks, no shortcuts, just elite basketball over time. So what makes these 4 teams legendary? It's not just about the ring, even though they have plenty. It's the fact that they each carved out unique paths to greatness and did it across years, sometimes decades. Golden State flipped the modern game upside down with spacing and shooting. Chicago owned an entire decade and turned their dynasty into global marketing gold. Miami built a modern contender faster than anyone and reshaped player movement in the process. In San Antonio, they built a culture so strong that winning became the norm, not the goal. That's the difference. Solid teams have good years. Historic teams win once or twice and leave a mark. Legendary teams change the entire landscape. All 4 have multiple titles, yes, but those titles are spread out, repeated, or arrived through sustained dominance. None of these are one-trick dynasties. Each has proven they can adapt, reload, and return to the top. They're not just champions, they're templates. Other franchises study what these teams did and try to copy it. Whether it's building through the draft like the Spurs and Warriors, assembling star power like the Heat, or creating generational duos like the Bulls did, each one has set trends and influenced the league far beyond wins and losses. And even their losing seasons matter. That sounds weird, but think about it. When one of these teams has a down year, people notice. That's how legendary status works. It's not just about who you are when you win, it's about who you are when you're not on top. These franchises carry weight because of what they've already done. The standard they set makes every draft pick, every trade, and every playoff game feel bigger. There's also something else. These teams don't just dominate, they stick in your memory. They have faces, styles, and identities that fans remember forever. Whether it's Curry launching from deep, Jordan with the fadeaway, Wade slicing through the lane, or Duncan's quiet dominance, you don't forget what these teams looked like when they were great. And honestly, That's why they're here. You can't tell the story of the NBA without these franchises. You'd be leaving out entire eras of style, strategy, and star power. That's the ultimate test. These are the teams you grow up watching, the ones that keep showing up in highlight reels, the ones with trophy rooms that don't gather dust. They don't just win, they define how winning looks. That's what separates the legendary from the historic. That's what puts them in level 6. They're not just in the league, they are the league. Level 7. GOATed. The Boston Celtics have the most championships in league history, 18 titles, and they've been winning them for nearly 80 years. They were founded in 1946 and didn't waste much time, turning into a powerhouse. From the late 1950s through the late 1960s, they flat out dominated. Bill Russell led them to 11 titles, including an absurd 8 in a row. It's the kind of run that still makes other franchises uncomfortable. And it wasn't just Russell. That era featured Bob Cousy, Sam Jones, Tom Heinsohn, and Coach Red Auerbach, lighting up the league with a system that no one could stop. But their dominance didn't stop in the 60s. The 80s rolled around, and in came Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish, forming one of the most balanced and intelligent squads the league's ever seen. They added 3 more rings during that era, all while reigniting the Celtics-Lakers rivalry and making basketball feel like a national event. Fast forward to the 21st century, and Boston kept stacking. The 2008 title brought another banner thanks to Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Rajon Rondo. Then came the 2024 championship, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, showing the franchise still isn't done. Add all that up, and the Celtics have built legacies across decades. Their all-time win percentage is hovering just under 60%. They've had stars, role players, iconic coaches, and historic arenas. Their influence isn't limited to titles. It's cultural, generational, and global. That's not just legendary, that's GOATed. Then there's the Los Angeles Lakers. They're only 1 title behind the Celtics, with 17 banners hanging above the court. But what sets them apart is how they've stayed relevant across every major NBA era. This franchise actually started in Minneapolis, where George Mikan helped them win 5 titles in the league's early years. Once they moved to Los Angeles in the 60s, they just kept winning. The 70s brought Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West. The 80s, Showtime. Magic Johnson, Kareem, James Worthy, and Pat Riley turned the Lakers into the flashiest, most unstoppable team in the league. They won 5 titles in that decade alone. The early 2000s gave them 3 more behind Shaq and Kobe. And after a short reset, Kobe brought them 2 more in 2009 and 2010. But wait, there's more. LeBron James and Anthony Davis added another in 2020, reminding everyone the Lakers don't rebuild, they reload. Their all-time win percentage is just behind Boston's, and their fan base spans the globe. From Hollywood courtside seats to international jersey sales, the Lakers are the NBA's most marketable machine, and it's not empty hype. They win, often, and across more styles, rosters, and rule changes than almost anyone. These 2 franchises aren't just great, they are the NBA's pillars. Between them, they've won 35 titles. That's almost half of the league's history, written by just 2 teams. Their rivalry defines the sport, their eras define the league, and their consistency defines greatness. That's what GOATed means, and they earned it. Latrell Sprewell. He started out strong after getting picked 24th in the 1992 draft by the Warriors. Right away, he became a starter, made all-rookie second team, and stacked up 4 All-Star appearances over the years. His peak saw him averaging over 18 points per game across more than 900 games. But his biggest headline? Choking his coach in '97. That stunt cost him 68 games and over $6 million. Still, he got his contract reinstated, which was worth more than $16 million. Then came the real turning point. In 2004, the Timberwolves offered him a 3-year deal worth $21 million. He turned it down and said he had a family to feed. That moment basically ended his career. No one signed him after the 2004 to 2005 season. After that, his finances fell apart. He lost a yacht that he defaulted over $1 million on. 2 of his homes were foreclosed, one in Milwaukee and another in Westchester County. By 2011, he owed the state of Wisconsin up to $3.5 million in taxes. His ex sued him for $200 million over promised college money. Now, his estimated net worth is about $150,000. Allen Iverson. The guy earned over $200 million in his career and still managed to go broke. Drafted first overall in 1996, he became one of the most electrifying guards ever. 11 All-Star games, an MVP in 2001, and 4 scoring titles. But off the court, that's where things fell apart. He ran with a crew of about 50 people and spent big on everyone. Cars, vacations, even gave a Bentley to a teammate. He owned a Maybach, a Bentley, and a Lamborghini. Spent up to $40,000 a night at clubs. Tried launching a clothing line that reportedly flopped hard and may have cost him around $40 million. Then the debts piled up. By 2012, he got sued by a jeweler for nearly $900,000. He told the court he didn't have enough for a cheeseburger. Things got worse. That same year, during a divorce, he filed for bankruptcy. The numbers were brutal. $62,000 a month coming in, but spending $360,000. Child support and legal costs just drained him. The only thing that saved him? Reebok. His lifetime deal pays $800,000 a year and guarantees $32 million at age 55. Right now, his net worth's barely $1 million. Antoine Walker, drafted 6th in 1996, he came in hot with the Celtics and made all-rookie first team. Over the next 12 years, he'd become a 3-time All-Star and win a championship with Miami in 2006. By the end, he earned over $108 million from salary alone, but it didn't last. He blew money on a car obsession, owning up to 10 luxury vehicles at once, including a Maybach worth nearly $500,000. Then came the watches, 15 to 20 elite timepieces, just sitting there. He built a massive 15,000 square foot mansion for his mom, complete with an indoor pool, then lost it. He supported around 30 friends and family, basically playing the role of an ATM. A trip to Vegas cost him over $1 million in gambling in just 6 weeks. When the 2008 crash wrecked his real estate investments, the whole thing crumbled. He owed over $800,000 in gambling debts and filed bankruptcy in 2010 with $12 million in liabilities. Even his championship ring got sold, but by 2013, he cleared the debt. He's now a financial educator for athletes, teaming with Morgan Stanley. He preaches long-term wealth now, after losing almost everything. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Jason Caffey, drafted 20th in 1995 by the Bulls. He grabbed 2 championships early with Chicago before playing for the Warriors and finishing with Milwaukee. Over a 10-year career, he averaged around 7 points and 4 rebounds per game and pulled in about $34 million in salary. Then it all went downhill. He had 10 children with 8 women, which led to monthly child support payments stacking up like unpaid rent in a ghost town. One court said he owed over $200,000 in support to just one mother. He filed for bankruptcy in 2007, listing $1.9 million in debts against only $1.15 million in assets. That bankruptcy attempt got dismissed in 2008 because of unresolved child support debt. He even faced jail time for failure to pay. His assets: a house, a sports bar, daycare centers, a Dodge Charger, and 2 NBA rings. Still, his expenses hit $15,000 a month, while income from business ventures was only around $11,000. He borrowed $50,000 from his mom just to stay afloat, but he didn't quit. He opened more businesses, battled anxiety, wrote a book, and ran for city council. That's a turnaround you don't see every day. Greg Oden, drafted first in 2007, he signed a rookie deal worth over $21 million, but a knee surgery kept him out his entire first year. He barely played over the next few seasons, starting only 66 games in total before getting waived by Portland in 2012. He signed 1-year deals with Miami and then a team in China, adding about $2 million more. Still, injuries crushed his momentum, and he missed out on what he says could have been $20 million extra if he'd stuck around when the salary cap exploded. His finances took hits too. Early on, he bought luxury cars and houses for family and friends without tracking his account balance. By 2018, he was close to bankruptcy. He even admitted he didn't know how much money he had at times, just trusting other people to handle it. Now he works at Butler University as director of basketball operations and partners with a financial education firm. He teaches athletes how to manage their money the way he wishes he had. Oden's story proves wealth can fade fast if you don't take control early. Darius Miles, picked 3rd straight out of high school. In 2000, he made history as the highest prep-to-pro pick ever at the time. He hit the ground running with the Clippers and earned all-rookie first-team honors. But after just 8 seasons split between 4 teams, injuries derailed his career, especially a brutal knee injury in 2006. He was effectively out of the league by 2009. Despite all that, he made around $62 million in NBA salary. Miles also had endorsement deals and even got into acting, with roles in a couple of early 2000s movies, but by 2016, he filed for bankruptcy, listing about $1.57 million in debt and just $460,000 in assets. He owed over $200,000 to the IRS and had serious child support debt. The kicker? Most of his downfall came from shady investments, not wild spending. After his mom passed in 2013, he spiraled into depression and eventually auctioned off personal belongings to pay bills. But he clawed back. He moved to Florida, reconnected with Quentin Richardson, and launched the Knuckleheads podcast. In 2023, he got probation for healthcare fraud, but his life's finally steadying out. Delonte West, drafted 24th in 2004. He played 8 seasons across 4 teams and earned about $16.4 million in NBA salary. But despite that, he's now living in near poverty. His bipolar disorder, diagnosed in 2008, mixed with substance abuse and personal losses, set off a downward spiral. He got arrested in 2009 for weapons charges, divorced twice, and at one point lived in a locker room during the NBA lockout. He sold off cars and jewelry, applied for jobs at home improvement stores, and still came up short. Legal fees, medical bills, and family obligations drained his savings fast. At one point, he was panhandling on the street in Dallas. Mavericks owner Mark Cuban helped in 2020, getting him into rehab and covering his expenses. For a while, West even worked at that rehab center, but he relapsed. Since then, he's been arrested multiple times, trespassing in 2022 and resisting arrest in 2024. His current net worth is estimated around $1,000. He continues to struggle with substance issues and mental health. No bankruptcy filing has been recorded, but he's clearly lost nearly everything. His story is painful and it's ongoing. Deshaun Stevenson, drafted 23rd in 2000. He jumped straight from high school to the pros and carved out a 13-year career across 6 teams. He earned about $28 million in salary and picked up a ring with Dallas in 2011. He once had a net worth estimated at $10 million, but in true financial tragedy fashion, that didn't last. He made headlines for installing a $3,500 ATM in his house, stocked with $20,000 and charging his friends a $4.50 fee. By 2014, things hit the wall. American Express sued him for nearly $384,000. When they froze his bank account, they reportedly found $62. That same year, he defaulted on a $1 million mortgage. The bank foreclosed and auctioned the house, but he still owed more than $540,000 after the sale. His lifestyle didn't bankrupt him overnight, but those debts stacked up fast. Now, he's kept a lower profile. In 2016, he opened a barbershop in Orlando and seems to have stayed out of major legal trouble since. From the league to the Clippers, real ones, his path's changed, but he's still cutting through it. Glenn Rice, picked 4th in 1989. He played 15 seasons and became a 3-time All-Star, won a title with the Lakers in 2000, and ended his career with over 18,000 points. He also racked up around $68 million in salary. But once he stepped off the court, things got dicey. He burned through cash with reckless spending and made some spectacularly bad investments. At one point, he was close to losing everything. Then came the child support problems. In 2016, he couldn't keep up with the $1,500 a month he owed and got it knocked down to $600 after piling up arrears. It was a steep fall for someone who used to cash checks like that on a Tuesday. He kept himself afloat with autograph signings, training camps, and appearances, but that was far from the big league money. Now, things are a little brighter. He works as a scout and community ambassador for the Miami Heat. He's even got his hands in promoting mixed martial arts through G-Force fights. His estimated net worth has bounced back to about $20 million. Not quite the glory days, but definitely not broke. He got lucky, and he knew when to pivot. Anderson, drafted 2nd overall in 1991, he played 15 seasons with 10 different teams and pulled in over $63 million in NBA salary. He made an All-Star team in 1994 and racked up more than 10,000 career points and over 5,000 assists. But the moment he retired in 2005, he filed for bankruptcy, and that wasn't a coincidence. He was spending around $41,000 a month, juggling 7 kids with 4 different women, and dealing with mounting child support bills. His car collection reportedly hit 11 vehicles. Add in legal fees from multiple DUIs, and the fortune melted fast. By the time the dust settled, his estimated net worth was under $1 million. After his mom died, in 2005, he started spiraling. He also later revealed childhood abuse, adding another layer to his personal struggles. Still, he found his footing. He earned a degree in 2010, started coaching in minor leagues, and eventually became head coach at Fisk University in 2018. In 2019, he suffered a stroke, but recovered and kept coaching. His playing days are over, but he stayed in the game and turned a brutal collapse into a steady rebuild. Vin Baker, drafted 8th In 1993, he played 13 seasons and made 4 All-Star teams. By the end of his run in 2006, he'd earned close to $100 million. But it didn't stick. Alcoholism took over in his later years. He drank in locker rooms, was suspended, ballooned over 300 pounds, and lost control. Gambling didn't help. He dropped nearly $1 million in a single night in Las Vegas. Add in bad investments, like a failed restaurant and mortgage default, and things collapsed. His $3 million home was foreclosed. By the time he retired, the money was gone. Then came the turn. He got sober in 2011. With help from Howard Schultz, he trained to manage a Starbucks. Seriously, that's where his reset began. He coached kids' camps, did broadcasting, and stayed visible. Then in 2018, he got hired as an assistant coach for the Bucks. 3 years later, he won a championship ring. Baker's now back in the NBA, sober, focused, and mentoring. From nearly drowning in addiction and losing everything to building a second act rooted in humility and purpose. He didn't just rebound, he completely rewrote the game. Joe Smith, picked first overall in 1995. He played 16 seasons with 12 different teams, more than anyone else at the time. He scored nearly 11 points a game and pulled in over 6 rebounds. In total, he made $61 million in salary. But after taxes, agent fees, and other cuts, he says he really only saw about $18 million. Then came the fall. At one point, he had just $3,000 in the bank and was more than $157,000 in debt. He bought homes in nearly every city he played in and often sold them at a loss. The luxury cars didn't help. Corvette, Bentley, multiple Range Rovers. His divorce in 2011 cost around $3 million alone. To dig out, he joined Alex Rodriguez's financial rehab show and started turning things around. He downsized, sold off assets, and launched basketball training programs in Atlanta. He also speaks openly about the mental stress it all caused. Today, he's still coaching and mentoring players, while his son plays professionally in France. He's not rich anymore, but he's stable, and he's done it by being real about the mistakes that nearly wiped him out. Larry Johnson, picked first overall in 1991, he racked up over $83 million in NBA salary through a 12-year career. He won Rookie of the Year and made 2 All-Star appearances before chronic back problems slowed him down. After moving to the Knicks, he shifted his game to stay effective, but his financial life wasn't as adaptable. He signed an $84 million extension in 1993, huge at the time, but by 2015, he was broke and filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. He listed around $800,000 in assets and owed roughly $300,000, including $90,000 to the IRS. He was also hit hard by child support payments for 5 kids with 4 different women. That number climbed to over $120,000. He even had to sell off his California mansion during bankruptcy, and when it ended in 2016, he had about $7,500 in the bank. At one point, an ex sued him for a dentist bill. Still, he rebounded. He rejoined the Knicks, this time in the front office. His estimated net worth now is around $500,000, and while that's nowhere near his peak, it's at least stable. Rick Mahorn. He spent over a decade in the league, made a name with the Bad Boys Pistons, and won a ring in 1989. He earned around $6.8 million total in salary. Not superstar money, but decent for his era. But by the end of 2009, it had all collapsed. He filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, listing about $228,000 in assets against over $518,000 in liability. His monthly income at the time was just over $6,000, while expenses clocked in at nearly $13,000. His house, once worth $1.3 million, was foreclosed. The IRS wanted over $200,000. He had $100 in cash and just over $1,000 in the bank. He leased an Escalade and owned 2 older vehicles. The bankruptcy trustee also flagged his missing NBA pension and championship rings. 1 was with his mom, and 2 weren't accounted for. After that, he dug in. He coached in the WNBA, did radio for the Pistons, and later played in the Big 3 league. Add in a pension and media work, and he's stable now. His estimated net worth sits between $3 and $4 million. Not bad for a guy who once had just $100. Travis Best, drafted 23rd overall in 1995, he played a decade in the NBA and earned about $18.2 million in salary. Adjusted for inflation, that's closer to $33.5 million. He played for 6 teams, including the Pacers, Heat, and Bulls, and finished his career overseas in 2009. But even with a solid, workmanlike career, he wasn't immune to financial disaster. He became one of several athletes defrauded by financial advisor Peggy Ann Fulford. She stole over $1 million from him, and in 2019, a court awarded him nearly $1.4 million in restitution. That fraud was a huge blow, not career-ending money, but enough to make a serious dent. Despite the setback, Best never filed for bankruptcy. He's kept a low profile since then and used the court victory to recover much of the stolen money. There's no flashy post-NBA downfall here, just a cautionary tale about trust, money, and the importance of watching your back even when you're not spending like a superstar. Best stayed out of financial collapse and managed to keep things stable. Quiet resilience beats spectacular flameouts every time. Robert Swift, drafted 12th in 2004 straight out of high school, he played 5 NBA seasons and earned over $18 million, but injuries limited him to just 97 games and the money didn't last. After the league, his life unraveled quickly. He defaulted on a $1.3 million home in Washington and stayed there squatting after it was foreclosed. The place became trash, bullet holes, garbage, even feces. New owners found him still living there and had to evict him. Meanwhile, he fell deep into addiction. Heroin, meth, cocaine, alcohol. He cycled through them all. In 2015, he was arrested with an illegal short-barreled shotgun and spent a month in jail. Police later found him living with a drug dealer and seized more firearms. At one point, he owed $5,000 a month in child support based on his NBA salary, long after the check stopped coming. But somehow, he's clawed back. After rehab and reconnecting with family, he stayed clean and tried to rebuild. He played minor league ball in the D-League, Japan, and Spain. He's no star anymore, but he's alive, recovering, and working on redemption after a total collapse. It's brutal, but it's not the end. Cliff Robinson. Drafted in 1989, he played 18 seasons with 5 teams and earned about $59 million in salary. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $100 million. He made one All-Star team, won 6th Man of the Year in 1993, and became known as Uncle Cliffy. But 2 years after retiring, he filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. He initially listed $12 million in assets and $11 million in debt, but later filings showed $7.1 million in assets and over $12 million in liabilities. He owed taxes and lost big on real estate. His Oregon mansion, once worth over $1 million, got foreclosed and auctioned. At the time of filing, he had $100 in cash and just over $1,000 in the bank. Even his championship rings and pension were flagged by the trustee. Some couldn't be accounted for. He bounced around post-retirement, WNBA coaching, radio work, Big 3 league appearances, and even a spot on Survivor. He also launched a cannabis brand, hoping to rebuild income. Then came health issues, a stroke in 2017, a jaw tumor in 2018, and lymphoma that ultimately took his life in 2020. Cliff's story is tragic, but also a warning. Big earnings don't guarantee security. Rest in peace, Cliff Robinson. David Harrison, drafted 29th overall. In 2004, he played 4 seasons for the Pacers, made about $4.4 million in salary, and somehow ended up working at McDonald's by 2013. His average game line, 5 points and 3 rebounds, didn't exactly make him a household name, but you'd still think $4 million could last longer than a Netflix subscription. He got suspended in 2008 for marijuana use, apparently enjoying a toke more than team meetings. Earlier, he'd been involved in the malice at the Palace Brawl, which earned him community service and some legal slap on the wrist. After his NBA run, he bounced through China and the G League. Eventually, the money dried up. He lost his house, his car, and took that job flipping burgers. But, and here's where he veers from the cliche, he pivoted. Harrison became a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. Then he co-founded Token Hi-Fi, a digital asset banking platform for cannabis businesses. That's right, former weed suspension guy now builds fintech for legal weed operation. Poetic. He's also spoken openly about mental health and addiction struggle, and now uses that mess as a map to build something better. No yachts or comeback games here, just someone clawing back with brains instead of buckets. Ray Williams, 10 seasons in the NBA, over 10,000 career points, averaged 15.5 points per game, and still ended up living in a broken down Buick in Florida. You think that's fiction, but welcome to the cautionary tale that is real-life pro athlete finance. He earned around $2 million in salary, not billionaire level, but still enough to avoid being homeless, theoretically. Except he spent most of it supporting his mom, his wife, his daughters, his siblings, and probably anyone who made eye contact. Then came 2 bankruptcy filings. He also took a lump sum payout of $200,000 from his NBA pension and promptly lost all of it in a Florida real estate scam. So much for sunny retirement. By 2010, he was living out of his car, scraping by on odd jobs and fishing to eat. Fortunately, Larry Bird and Kevin McHale, yes, actual good guys, helped him return to Mount Vernon with a city job in parks and recreation. He got married again and tried to rebuild, but life wasn't done. He was diagnosed with colon cancer and passed away in 2013 at age 58. His story is heartbreaking. Talented, generous, but tragically unprepared for life after the game. A sad story overall with Ray Williams. Sidney Moncrief, his run in the league, brought him around $7 million between 1979 and 1991. But the real trouble started after the final buzzer. He tried turning that NBA spotlight into a car dealership empire across Arkansas and Oklahoma. Sounds smart, until lawsuits and unpaid wages started piling up in the early 2000s. By 2004, he was on the hook for over $80,000 in back wages alone, and legal claims were already breaking six figures. Then it got messier. The Oklahoma Department of Labor made things official, and his finances nosedived from there. In November of 2005, Sidney and his wife filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Texas. Their assets barely crossed $130,000, while debt hit $1,190,000. Almost $800,000 of that came straight from the failing dealership operation. Creditors included Hyundai Motor Finance, the IRS, the Dallas Mavericks, and even a local newspaper. That's right, he owed a newspaper. What kind of financial path leads there? The same one where your post-career plan crumbles and your car business takes you down with. He eventually moved on, doing speaking gigs and coaching, but that hit was serious. Eric Strickland. He brought in around $13 million over 9 seasons in the NBA, but one real estate mistake in Georgia nearly blew a huge chunk of it. The deal came from a friend of a friend, which sounds sketchy already, but Strickland decided to trust the referral. His father, a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel and acting business manager, looked over the paperwork, and they went through with the purchase. The land was hyped up as a gold mine, allegedly worth up to $3 million. Strickland bought it for $1,800,000, thinking he was scoring a deal. But that valuation? Total fiction. The actual worth was way below what he paid, and the so-called deal turned into a disaster. It wasn't just the money. The emotional fallout was real too. That friend connection turned sour, and it wrecked the trust Strickland had in those close to him. That kind of loss hurts more than just your wallet. Even with a family member doing the paperwork, this shows how fast things can fall apart when you let your guard down. Strickland had to eat that financial punch, and the sting came with a personal cost that no appraisal could have warned him about. Randy Brown. He spent 12 seasons in the league, pulled in over $15 million, and won 3 titles with Chicago. But the victory laps ended fast. After hanging it up in 2003, he threw himself into restaurant and real estate investments. Spoiler alert, they didn't pan out. Those ventures collapsed, and by late 2007 or early 2008, he was filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy. He reported about $1 million in debt, covering everything from unpaid rent to IRS bills. The fallout got so bad that his 3 championship rings from the Bulls dynasty run had to be auctioned off. They were appraised at $40,000, but ended up selling for between $54,000 and $59,000. That kind of personal loss hits hard. You don't just lose money, you lose milestone. But Brown didn't stay down. By 2009, the Bulls brought him back into the fold, first as director of player development. By 2013, he was assistant general manager. That second chance wasn't flashy, but it brought financial stability and a clean professional restart. Brown's story isn't just about losing a fortune, it's about clawing back when everything feels wrecked. He rebuilt without needing a spotlight to prove it. Dan Issel. He racked up over 27,000 points during his 15-year run across the ABA and NBA, grabbed 7 All-Star appearances, and even took home an ABA title. He also reportedly earned over $61 million through his career. That's the kind of number that usually means never worrying about money again, unless you dive headfirst into bad investments. After hanging it up, he poured money into businesses and a horse racing venture. Neither went the way he'd hoped. By 2009, Issel had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. He owed around $4.5 million across 34 creditors, including family members, business partners, and the IRS. His assets, around $7.1 million, but his liabilities, they reached over $12 million. That left him in a financial hole over $5 million deep. He was forced to give up memorabilia, some collectibles, and even part of his pension. But he didn't just vanish. After settling IRS issues, he started working in oil and gas, picked up media gigs, stayed active in church leadership, and rebuilt his finances. This wasn't some dramatic free fall. It was a slow burn of poor decisions and missed signals. Still, Issel didn't stay buried in debt forever. Mookie Blaylock. He played 13 seasons in the NBA, scored nearly 12,000 points, handed out almost 6,000 assists, and made over $31 million in salary. Adjusted for today, that's about $61 million, but it didn't stick. His career took a sharp turn thanks to addiction and bad decisions that followed him long after the final buzzer. Blaylock dealt with substance abuse and alcoholism that escalated toward the end of his playing days. Things exploded in May of 2013 when he caused a fatal accident while driving under the influence. He pled guilty, served 3 years in prison, and got slapped with 8 more years of probation. That mistake came with serious legal costs, court fees, payouts, and other penalties chipped away at what was left of his fortune. This wasn't a one-time incident. Before that crash, he'd already racked up at least 7 other DUI charges. And despite earning well over $30 million during his time in the league, most of it disappeared into legal bills and the chaos around his personal life. Blaylock didn't end up bankrupt, but his net worth today sits much lower than it once was. A steep fall for someone who had everything set. His story is a clear picture of how fast it can all unravel. Chris Washburn picked 3rd overall in the 1986 draft by Golden State, but that high draft slot didn't translate to a long NBA career. He played only 72 games over 2 seasons, averaged just over 3 points per game, and was banned from the league in 1989 after failing 3 drug tests. In that short span, he made about $1,250,000, and it vanished fast. By 1991, he filed for bankruptcy. Cocaine addiction wrecked both his game and his finances, and not long after, he was homeless in Houston. He lived on the streets, dug through dumpsters, slept in crack houses, and eventually landed in prison on drug charges. But in 2000, he got clean. He stayed that way. He opened a fried chicken restaurant back in Hickory in 2011, though it didn't last long. He later worked in mortgage collections and helped people experiencing homelessness. These days, he runs CW Enterprises, TAC, doing motivational speaking and youth outreach, plus local shuttle and go-kart services. He's been sober for over 24 years now. The fortune disappeared, but he found a way to rebuild a life built on purpose instead of points per game. Eric Williams, drafted 14th overall in 1995. He played 12 seasons in the league, bouncing around to 7 different teams and racking up close to $40 million in salary. Adjusted for today, that's nearly $70 million. But all that money didn't come with a guarantee. By 2007, he filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, listing $1.9 million in debts. A big part of that came from unpaid child support. He owed over $24,000 and couldn't even afford a lawyer. That's not an exaggeration. He publicly claimed he was homeless by 2014. He even appeared on TMZ, not for courtside drama, but because of how far things had fallen. He later showed up in ESPN's Broke series, admitting he'd lost every bit of his NBA earnings. This wasn't about reckless luxury spending. It was about failing to manage obligations, missing payments, and not setting up a safety net. One of the biggest lessons from his story is how fast it can unravel, even with millions in the bank. Eric Williams didn't just lose money, he lost footing. And despite 12 years in the league, his post-career life became a warning, not a victory lap. Derek Coleman, 1st overall pick in 1990, played 15 seasons and stacked up nearly $90 million in salary. He averaged 16.5 points and over 9 rebounds a game, with totals north of 12,000 points and 7,000 rebounds. That's a rock-solid career on paper, but the money didn't last. In 2010, Coleman filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. His debts were listed around $4.7 million, while his assets barely reached $1 million. That included a Bentley convertible, fur coats, jewelry, and real estate, including homes for himself and his mother. The core problem? Detroit. Coleman invested heavily in real estate during a time when the city's economy was in free fall. He was trying to help, revitalizing neighborhoods and opening businesses, but the recession crushed the project. Coleman's corner was one of the biggest flops, and he also had money tied up in restaurant franchises and retail that folded. Even after liquidation, he was able to keep his NBA pension, bringing in about $90,000 a year. Since then, he's focused on rebuilding. He went back to Syracuse to finish his degree, got involved in clean water advocacy in Flint, and runs a youth league. His net worth today sits around $2 million, down but not done. Delta 8. Delta 8 is a psychoactive cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant, kind of like its louder cousin Delta 9. The difference? Delta 8 shows up in way smaller amounts and usually needs to be made from cannabidiol pulled out of hemp. It still messes with the mind, just not quite as hard. It's one of the most popular drugs in the world right now, especially for young kids because it's so easily accessible at gas stations. There's a voluntary program in place for players dealing with synthetic cannabinoids. Signing up won't get them in trouble, but not following the rules after that definitely could. Fines or suspensions are still on the table. Research on Delta 8's effect on performance is all over the place. Some people say it helps with relaxation and focus. Others point out it messes with your heart rate and energy. Basically, no one really knows what it does to elite athletes yet. And as far as big scandals go, nothing in the NBA has popped off around Delta 8, but one player, Jared Dwayne Shaw, landed in hot water in Indonesia over Delta 9 candies. Very different country, very different rules. Testosterone. Testosterone's a natural hormone that boosts muscle growth, strength, and recovery, but when it's taken in synthetic form, it crosses into banned territory for NBA players. The league doesn't allow synthetic testosterone because it can give players a serious edge and create a mess of health problems. It's made mostly in the testes and sometimes in the adrenal glands, doing everything from building muscle to deepening voices. But those synthetic versions, that's where performance starts to spike, and that's exactly why it's banned. These anabolic steroids can help athletes train longer, recover faster, and pack on way more muscle. Sounds great for a highlight reel, but it messes with fairness and safety. The NBA tests players 4 times during the season, and if they've got a reason to believe something's up, they'll test even more. The penalties are no joke. 25 games for first offense, 55 for the second, and a total ban for the third. Some players haven't dodged the consequences. Didi Louzada got hit with a suspension for testing positive for testosterone. It's not just muscles that get affected either. It can boost confidence, aggression, and focus, but it also raises risks like heart disease, liver damage, and serious hormonal problems. The NBA's been strict with this stuff for a reason. Ketamine. Ketamine's a dissociative anesthetic that's used in medicine, but raises a lot of red flags in sports like the NBA. If a player tests positive for it, they're pushed into a treatment program. Do it again, and they're looking at suspensions. Or worse, it's used in hospitals for anesthesia, and lately, it's been making waves in treating depression and PTSD under close supervision, but outside those settings, it becomes a problem. The stuff can mess with reaction time and coordination, 2 things you kind of need if you're trying to guard someone in transition or hit a step-back jumper. It can also raise your heart rate and blood pressure, which is risky when your job involves sprinting, jumping, and constant contact. There haven't been any reported suspensions in the NBA directly tied to ketamine, but players like Tyreke Evans have been kicked out over other banned substances in the same category. In the US, ketamine is a Schedule III controlled substance. That means it's legal for medical use, but illegal to use without a prescription. So yeah, it's not something players can casually mess with. The risks, both on and off the court, are too serious. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, cocaine. Cocaine's a central nervous system stimulant that's powerful, addictive, and completely banned in the NBA. It's made from the coca plant and causes dopamine to spike, which can make users feel energized, sharp, and unnaturally confident. Sounds like it might help on the court, right? But any temporary boost is drowned out by the massive health risks and long-term damage. Cocaine isn't like some borderline case. It's right at the top of the league's blacklist. It can mess with decision-making, raise injury risk, and send heart rate through the roof. It also leads to addiction fast, and that's destroyed more than a few careers. Just look at Michael Ray Richardson, Roy Tarpley, Richard Dumeau, Chris Washburn, and David Thompson. Each one had the talent, but cocaine got in the way. The league's been forced to tighten the screws. First offense gets treatment, second gets suspended, third can be a lifetime ban. It's not just about physical performance either. Aggression, paranoia, and major mood swings make it impossible to stay consistent. The NBA's stance is harsh for a reason. Tramadol. Tramadol's a synthetic opioid that treats pain but comes with enough baggage to get it banned from the NBA in 2024. It works by hitting the opioid receptors and messing with serotonin and norepinephrine levels, making it a potent tool for killing pain, but also raising red flags for abuse. That's why the NBA and the Players Union added it to the anti-drug program, lining up with the World Anti-Doping Agency's stance on the drug's biggest draw for athletes, pain relief. It can make intense training or playing through injuries more manageable, but it's not some magic fix. Tramadol can slow down reaction times and dull focus. Pretty bad news when you're trying to chase someone down in transition, and regular use can lead to dependence, which opens the door to serious long-term problems. Bobby Portis found that out the hard way. In 2025, he was suspended 25 games after testing positive. He claimed he confused Tramadol with Toradol, which is actually allowed. His team said it was an honest mistake, but the league stuck with the penalty. In the US, Tramadol is listed as a Schedule IV controlled substance. That means it's got medical uses, but it's still tightly regulated. For athletes, especially in the NBA, the message is clear. No matter the intention, using Tramadol is risky and against the rules. DHEA. DHEA is a hormone made naturally by the body, but once it's turned into a supplement, things get dicey, especially in the NBA. It acts as a precursor to testosterone and estrogen, and while it's legal to buy over-the-counter in the US, it's banned by the NBA. Why? Because it can boost testosterone, and that opens the door to performance enhancement. The league tossed it on the banned list to match up with other sports agencies like the World Anti-Doping Agency. The penalties are clear. A first offense means a 10-game suspension, then it jumps to 25 games for a second, and a lifetime ban after a third. Back in 2009, Rashard Lewis got hit with a 10-game suspension after a test showed elevated testosterone levels tied to DHEA. Then in 2011, O.J. Mayo also sat for 10 games after he said he unknowingly drank an energy drink laced with the stuff. It can increase muscle mass, speed up recovery, and improve energy level. But results vary, and most studies say it doesn't do much for younger athletes. The risks? Hormonal imbalances, liver issues, heart problems, and mood swings. So even if it's easy to buy, athletes in the NBA can't afford the consequences. Taking it, even by accident, comes with career-altering results. LSD. LSD is a synthetic hallucinogen that hits serotonin receptors and flips perception upside down. It kicks in fast, peaks within a few hours, and can stretch out over 20 hours. Visual distortions, emotional roller coasters, and that weird feeling of being connected to everything. Classic LSD effects. It's not physically addictive, but it can absolutely scramble your brain short-term and leave some long-term mental baggage. Playing on LSD, you're either gonna see 50 defenders or none. Like many of the other drugs, first time caught, players are tossed into a treatment program. Keep pushing it, and suspensions or even full dismissal from the league are next. The policy's clear. There's no room for unpredictability when millions are watching. Performance-wise, some claim LSD dulls pain, which could help on a physical level, but the downsides are brutal. It messes with coordination, delays reaction time, and judgment basically disappears. Not exactly a winning combo on the court legally. LSD is a Schedule I drug in the US. That means it's considered to have no medical use and a high potential for abuse. It's completely illegal and totally off limits in professional sports. One bad trip, and your career might take a turn you can't dribble out of. Cannabis. Cannabis is a psychoactive plant packed with compounds like THC and CBD, and it's had a rocky relationship with the NBA. THC delivers the mental buzz, while CBD offers therapeutic effects without getting players spaced out. Back in the day, testing positive for cannabis meant a trip to a treatment program, a big fine, or even a suspension, but that changed fast. In 2020, the league hit pause on random marijuana testing during the pandemic. Then, by July 1st, 2023, cannabis officially got scratched off the banned substances list in the new collective bargaining agreement. No more random testing. Players can even invest in cannabis and CBD companies now, just not as controlling owners. But if someone's acting off at practice or games, the team can still step in and require an evaluation. While cannabis won't turn anyone into an all-star, some athletes swear by it for easing pain, lowering anxiety, and helping them sleep. But the side effects can't be ignored. Too much, and it might tank focus and reaction time. Big names in the league have stepped up too. Al Harrington launched Viola Brands. Clifford Robinson used cannabis during his career and later started his own brand. Kevin Durant joined Weed Maps to push for cannabis acceptance in sports. Durant literally plays every game high. The league's shift shows how fast the conversation around cannabis is evolving. MK677. MK677, also called ibutamorin, is a growth hormone secretagogue that kicks the body into boosting its own growth hormone, an insulin-like growth factor 1. It mimics the hunger hormone ghrelin and gets swallowed instead of injected, which makes it a lot more tempting for anyone trying to gain muscle and cut fat without the needles. But here's the catch. It's not approved for human use, and the NBA doesn't want it anywhere near the league. First offense, mandatory treatment. Keep using it, and they're looking at a long suspension or full dismissal. In January 2024, Tristan Thompson got slapped with a 25-game suspension for testing positive for MK677 and another banned compound, LGD4033. Both are tied to muscle growth and body fat reduction, and both are banned for good reason. MK677 can increase lean mass and help with recovery, but it can also throw off insulin sensitivity, raise blood sugar, and cause swelling, pain, and neurological symptoms like numbness and anxiety. Worst part, long-term effects are still a mystery. Legally, it's in the no-go zone. The FDA hasn't approved it, and it's banned in all major sports. Anyone using it without medical authorization is risking a suspension, and possibly their entire career. Heroin or diacetylmorphine is an opioid so powerful and dangerous that the NBA lists it as a drug of abuse with automatic consequences. It's made from morphine, comes in powder or tar form, and gets into the system fast by injection, snorting, or smoking. Once inside, it turns back into morphine, floods the brain, and hooks into opioid receptors like it's on a mission. That rush users feel, it comes with warm flushes, dry mouth, and a heavy sinking feeling that might seem relaxing until the addiction kicks in. In the NBA, one positive test for heroin means an instant dismissal. Players can try for reinstatement after 2 years, but only if they complete treatment and get the green light from both the league and Players Association. The message is clear. There's zero tolerance. Careers have been destroyed by it. Chris Herron was one of the most public examples. His NBA path crashed due to heroin, though he eventually recovered and now speaks about addiction. Cyril Baptiste never got to play after being drafted because of heroin use. Reggie Harding, the first player drafted straight from high school, also lost his shot due to heroin. On the court, heroin wrecks performance. It slows reaction time, weakens coordination, and clouds decision-making. Off the court, the health risks are even worse. Overdose, disease, organ damage, and severe mental health issues. It's banned for reasons that go way beyond basketball. Diuretics. Diuretics, also called water pills, are medications that help flush water and salts from the body by increasing urine production. They're used to treat real medical conditions like high blood pressure and swelling. But in pro sports, especially the NBA, they've got a sketchy reputation. That's because they can be used to drop weight quickly or hide other banned substances during a drug test. The NBA bans diuretics outright. Substances like furosemide, spironolactone, and hydrochlorothiazide are all on the naughty list. Get caught once, and it's a 25-game suspension without pay. After that, it only gets worse. These aren't just pills for bloating. They're classified as performance enhancers and masking agents under the league's anti-drug program. In 2019, DeAndre Ayton found that out the hard way when he was suspended 25 games for testing positive for a diuretic. The NBA never named the specific drug, but it didn't matter. The policy was enforced. Diuretics might make you lighter on the scale, but they also mess with hydration, drain essential electrolytes, and can leave you dizzy, weak, or worse, at risk for kidney damage. They don't boost performance, they sabotage it. Athletes with real medical needs can apply for a therapeutic use exemption, but using them without clearance, that's a fast track to the bench, no questions asked. Phentermine. Phentermine is a prescription stimulant used for weight loss, but in the NBA, it's a red flag. It boosts norepinephrine and dopamine levels in the brain, which cranks up energy, cuts appetite, and makes users feel more alert. That might sound useful during a grueling 82-game season, but it's banned for good reason. The league, alongside the Players Association, considers it a performance-enhancing drug, and a risky one at that. In 2007, Lindsey Hunter got caught up in it. He was hit with a 10-game suspension after testing positive while playing for the Detroit Pistons. His explanation? He took his wife's diet pills without knowing they contained phentermine. The NBA didn't buy that as a free pass. Under the current policy, the first offense brings a 10-game suspension, second means 25, and third gets you booted from the league with a shot at reinstatement after 2 years. These rules exist to protect fairness and player health. Phentermine can jack up your heart rate, mess with your sleep, and push your nervous system into overdrive. It's linked to anxiety, addiction, and serious heart risks. Sure, it might kill your hunger and give you a burst of focus, but the health costs and the league penalties make it a dangerous shortcut no player should take. Codeine. Codeine is an opioid used for pain relief and cough suppression, but in the NBA, it's straight up banned under the league's anti-drug program. It's a prodrug, meaning once it hits your system, it turns into morphine and then latches onto the brain's opioid receptor. That's where the sedation, slowed reflexes, and risk of addiction start kicking in. Not exactly a formula for elite-level performance. That puts it in the same category as heroin and LSD. A first-time offense sends a player into mandatory treatment. After that, the punishments ramp up to suspensions or even getting kicked out of the league. It doesn't matter if it came from a doctor or a friend. Once it shows up in a test, the league moves fast. While it can help with pain, the trade-offs are ugly. Sedation, drowsiness, dizziness, it's a recipe for disaster on the court. You can't run plays when your brain's buffering like an old internet video. Plus, the risk of dependence is high. Tolerance builds quickly, and that leads to bigger doses, stronger effects, and a harder crack. In the US, it's a controlled substance, regulated based on dosage and combination. Bottom line, players need to steer clear or get caught in a spiral that ends in suspension, rehab, or worse. Alcohol or ethanol is legal, widely consumed, and not banned by the NBA. But that doesn't mean players can do keg stands before practice. The league allows drinking during personal time But once it overlaps with team activities, everything changes. Show up under the influence to a game, practice, or official event, and the NBA might drop a mandated medical evaluation on you fast. The policy isn't just about image, it's about performance and health. If a player refuses evaluation or skips treatment, fines and suspensions can follow. And contracts sometimes include their own alcohol clauses, so breaking one could even void a deal. From a performance standpoint, alcohol is basically a stat sheet nightmare. It dehydrates the body, messes with coordination, slows reaction time, and wrecks sleep quality. Toss in hormonal effects like lower testosterone, and now recovery and muscle growth get hit too. Not to mention, players become walking injury magnets when their reflexes are fried. Despite being socially accepted, alcohol can quietly sabotage a season. It's not illegal, but it is disruptive, and the league keeps a close eye on how it's used. If a player starts crossing the line, it's not just their play that suffered. The consequences are built right into the NBA's playbook for handling distractions and risk. Methanolone. Methanolone, also known as primobolan, is an anabolic steroid that's popped up in both medical and performance-enhancing conversation. But in the NBA, it's only part of the latter. It comes in two forms, enanthate, which is injected, and acetate, which is taken orally. Both boost muscle growth, preserve lean mass, and accelerate recovery. Sounds like a dream, right? Until the drug test comes back positive. The NBA classifies methanolone as a performance-enhancing drug under its anti-drug program. Back in 2013, Hito Turkoglu got hit with a 20-game suspension after testing positive. He said the medication came from a trainer in Turkey and he didn't know it had methanolone in it. That didn't help him avoid the penalty. What makes this steroid appealing to athletes is its ability to improve protein synthesis, increase strength, and help burn fat without piling on water weight. But it doesn't come free. It can wreck natural testosterone production, mess up cholesterol levels, and damage the liver, especially the oral version. Acne, hair loss, and mood swings can tag along too. In the US, methanolone's a Schedule III controlled substance. It's banned without a prescription, and it's also listed by WADA and every major league, including the NBA. So even if someone thinks it'll help them power through a season, it'll likely end that season early instead. DMT, dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, is a psychedelic so intense it turns brains into kaleidoscopes in under a minute. It's naturally occurring in plants, animals, and even humans. But when concentrated and used recreationally, it launches users into vivid hallucinations, time distortion, and full-on out-of-body experiences. Not great for running a fast break. It falls under the hallucinogen category, and while no players have been suspended specifically for DMT, the league has enforced penalties for similar drug violations. First offense means mandatory treatment. After that, suspensions or even dismissal. DMT isn't performance enhancing unless you're trying to win a staring contest with the ceiling. It impairs judgment, coordination, and cognitive control. Physically, it can raise heart rate and blood pressure. Mentally, it can trigger anxiety, paranoia, or worse. These are not traits you want mid-game or in any competitive setting. Despite interest in its potential for mental health treatments, DMT remains a Schedule I substance in the US, meaning it's illegal with no accepted medical use. That makes it completely off limits in professional sports. The league's stance is simple. If you need to see other dimensions, do it far away from the court and the cameras. Tamoxifen. Tamoxifen is a prescription drug used to treat hormone-sensitive breast cancer, but in the world of pro sports like the NBA, it's known more for what it covers up than what it cures. It's a selective estrogen receptor modulator that blocks estrogen's effects in the body. In athletes, especially males, it can help restart natural testosterone production after a steroid cycle and prevent side effects like gynecomastia. The NBA bans tamoxifen under its anti-drug program because it's commonly used to mask or recover from anabolic steroid use. In 2014, Nick Calathes of the Memphis Grizzlies was suspended 20 games after testing positive. He claimed he hadn't knowingly taken it, but the league didn't budge. Strict liability means if it's in your system, it's on you. Tamoxifen can boost testosterone indirectly, helping maintain strength and lean mass. That sounds helpful until the risks roll in. It can throw off hormonal balance, mess with mood, drop libido, and strain the liver. Long-term use even raises the risk of blood clot and other cardiovascular issues. Legally, tamoxifen requires a prescription in the US, and it's banned by WADA and every major sports league. Without proper medical need, using it is a fast way to get hit with a suspension and have your career questioned in the process. Promorelin, also called GHRP2. This synthetic peptide tells your body to pump out more growth hormone by hitting the ghrelin receptors. Medically, it's used in Japan to test for hormone deficiencies. In the NBA, it's on the banned list for performance-enhancing drugs and mimetics. No player's getting a pass for trying to sneak this into their recovery stack. The NBA treats it the same way WADA does, off limits all the time, not just during competition. A first offense gets you 25 games without pay. Slip up again, and the suspensions get longer. Third strike, you're out with a minimum 2-year disqualification before you can even ask to come back. John Collins got slapped with a 25-game suspension in 2019 for testing positive for GHRP2. Jody Meeks and Wilson Chandler also got hit, both tied to substances from the same category. The league isn't subtle with this stuff. If you're using something that boosts growth hormone, they're going to find it and punish it. Yes, it can build muscle, speed up recovery, and even stimulate appetite, but it comes with side effects like hormonal chaos, joint pain, and increased risk of diabetes. These aren't just side effects, they're warnings. In a league built on speed, stamina, and skill, trying to cheat biology usually backfire. Ligandrol, also known as LGD-4033. This selective androgen receptor modulator was developed to treat muscle-wasting diseases and osteoporosis. But in pro basketball, it's just another banned shortcut. Ligandrol binds to androgen receptors in muscle and bone, triggering anabolic effects without the full-blown steroid baggage. It's taken orally and sticks around in your system for over a day, long enough for the league's drug test to notice. In the NBA, Ligandrol is banned under the anti-drug program. A first offense, 25 games without pay. Joakim Noah learned that the hard way in 2017 with a 20-game suspension that cost him millions. Tristan Thompson got hit even harder in 2024 after testing positive for Ligandrol and ibutamoren. No ambiguity, no wiggle room. Ligandrol does increase lean mass and strength, but it also jacks up hormone levels in weird directions. Testosterone drops, cholesterol levels shift, and the liver can take a beating. HDL drops, enzymes spike, and suddenly, your body's regulatory systems are out of sync. The FDA hasn't approved it for medical use. It's still an investigational drug, banned by WADA and every major league, including the NBA. For athletes looking to gain an edge, Ligandrol offers a temporary boost, followed by a long suspension and a very public reminder that shortcuts usually lead to sideline seats. GHB, gamma-hydroxybutyric acid, is a central nervous system depressant that your body makes in small amounts, just not the kind the NBA's worried about. When taken recreationally, GHB acts like a sedative with euphoric effects. It's called liquid ecstasy, or just G. In the NBA, it's called a problem. GHB is listed under the NBA's drugs of abuse category. That means it's not just banned, it's handled with the league's strictest penalties. First offense, you're heading to treatment, no questions asked. Second time, suspension. Third, you're out, and you're not coming back for at least 2 years. GHB isn't used to improve performance. Quite the opposite. It impairs coordination, clouds decision-making, and causes memory gaps you definitely don't want during Game 7. It can make you dizzy, confused, and unable to function at a professional level. On top of that, it comes with serious risks: overdose, dependency, withdrawal symptoms like tremors and delirium, and even death if it's mixed with other depressants like alcohol. Legally, GHB is a Schedule I substance. Possession without medical authorization lands you in legal trouble, not just league trouble. The NBA's stance is clear. GHB has no place on or around the court, and any use will be met with serious consequences. Morphine. This opioid powerhouse is straight out of the opium poppy and straight into the NBA's list of drugs of abuse. It's prescribed for severe pain, like post-surgery or late-stage cancer, not for players trying to gut through a hamstring strain. Morphine binds to those mu-opioid receptors in the brain and turns down the pain dial, while also switching on a bunch of other effects nobody wants mid-game. The NBA doesn't mess around with this one. Morphine is banned, no exceptions. First offense, you're tossed into a treatment program. Second or third, say hello to suspension or worse, full disqualification. The league's not interested in excuses, whether it's prescribed or recreational. If you're found using it without medical clearance and oversight, you're out. Even though it's effective for pain, morphine slows reaction time, clouds thinking, and makes you drowsy. Not exactly ideal for running an offense or chasing down fast break. It also builds tolerance fast, meaning more of it is needed to get the same result, which is how dependence creeps in. The next thing you know, you're managing withdrawal instead of game prep. It's a Schedule II substance in the US, meaning legal with a prescription, but dangerous without one. It's also banned globally by anti-doping authorities. In pro hoops, morphine's reputation as a painkiller comes with a cost, and the league's not willing to pay it. Percocet. This drug's made up of oxycodone and acetaminophen. And yeah, it's prescribed for pain, but it's also a massive red flag in the NBA. Because oxycodone's the heavy hitter in there, Percocet ends up slapped with the Schedule II label in the United States. That's not exactly the good list. In the league, anything with oxycodone, whether it's called Percocet, OxyContin, or any of its many cousins, is off limits, unless it's got a prescription and is fully disclosed. If not, it's an instant problem, and the consequences aren't mild. The first violation gets a player tossed into a treatment program, no arguments. A second time means a suspension without pay, and that third strike, total dismissal. And good luck trying to get back in before 2 years go by. The league doesn't play when it comes to this stuff, and it makes sense. Percocet doesn't boost performance, it drags it down. Players can end up dizzy, sluggish, totally off balance. Mentally, it's even worse. Memory takes a hit, judgment goes out the window, and the mood swings. Nobody wants that on the floor. Health risks are brutal too. There's liver damage from the acetaminophen, serious withdrawal symptoms, and overdose can absolutely be fatal. That combo makes it clear why the NBA keeps it locked down. Ephedra. This one's a plant-based stimulant that had a serious moment in the 90s and early 2000s, mostly showing up in weight loss and energy supplements. It's got ephedrine and pseudoephedrine in it, which basically crank up your nervous system, boost heart rate, and give a temporary jolt of alertness. Sounds handy until you look at the health risks. The NBA banned ephedra and all its active components because the risks outweigh any of the so-called benefit. The stuff might have been pitched as a shortcut to energy and fat loss, but it's also linked to heart attacks, strokes, and some really dangerous heat-related complications. Even though the league hasn't publicized many player suspensions directly tied to ephedra, the ban's solid, and they're not the only ones. The FDA banned it from supplements back in 2004, and that ruling stuck after a court challenge in 2006. Two tragic cases that pushed it into the spotlight were Corey Stringer and Steve Beckler. Both athletes, both linked to ephedra, both fatal. In terms of actual performance, studies have shown ephedra doesn't do much, maybe a tiny bit of short-term weight loss, but nothing game-changing. And when the downside is seizures, high blood pressure, and serious psychiatric symptoms, it's no mystery why it's off the table. The league made the right call. Phencyclidine. This one's more than just a mouthful. It's one of the most dangerous drugs that's ever been tied to professional sports. It started out in the 1950s as an anesthetic, but it didn't take long before doctors realized it came with wild side effects like severe hallucinations and total mental chaos. So they scrapped it for humans, and here we are. It's now totally banned and fully illegal in the United States. In the NBA, it's on the drug of abuse list. That means the league sees it as high risk, high damage, and absolutely useless for any kind of performance. If a player tests positive for it once, they're sent to a treatment program. Do it again, and it's suspensions or worse. A third strike can mean getting kicked out of the league, and not in a temporary kind of way. The way PCP messes with your brain is intense. It hijacks the glutamate system, and that's the part that keeps you grounded in reality. Instead, it throws you into hallucinations, confusion, and unpredictable behavior. Motor skills tank, coordination disappears, and aggression can spike. There's also long-term damage, like memory problems, speech issues, and serious depression. This stuff isn't just bad for basketball, it's bad, period. The league's zero tolerance on it makes sense. If you enjoyed this, I'm gonna be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.